Satan's power is expired.
Yes, sir.
His educational system, his economic system, his political system, it's expired.
Most people have had moments where they have tapped into a higher power, right? You know, intuitive inclinations, psychic moments, clairvoyancy.
The law of transmutation, where they converted their sexual energy that they had for the opposite sex, and they rechanneled it and redirected it into becoming proficient in their craft or their business, and they stayed loyal to the one that they were with.
50% of marriages don't work out, but they're not telling, well, you know, 50% of marriages do work out.
Right.
But we always focus on the bad side because it validates, right, our resistance that we have towards the institution of marriage in the first place.
One that can get into that God mind, that quantum mind, we're going to have to get it from the man that first taught us that the God mind even existed on that level. And I would submit it would be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the minister.
A legend is an energy that never dies, meaning that if you do good work, it has to reverberate beyond your body.
There's 19 keys. 19 keys.
I appreciate my pops for teaching me how to be a guy.
From a boy to a man, and ultimately back into the natural state of being into a God.
As guys, we're supposed to always move with that higher self. I had to be able to execute it. Having knowledge is not power, the execution of knowledge is power. Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. Because the only real knowledge you can get is knowledge of self.
The highest level. The highest level is ownership. The highest level is power. The highest level is sovereignty. The highest level is higher consciousness. The highest level is when we own our own culture.
Excellence at a very high level. Not eye level. A high level.
It's time for a high level conversation.
We're here for another high level conversation. 19 keys, and this is a high level conversation.
Welcome to another high-level conversation. Today, we're going to tap into the ability to tune in. I was picking up this book that I didn't have a lot of time with, right? 24 hours to be exact. But when I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. And it's beautiful because it's in 100% alignment with where my thoughts have been. And this book talks about some of what I would consider the secrets of tapping into the all mind, meaning that you can tap into having access to full self and full power, to God power, that ability to think like a master, because most of the world thinks like a slave, right? We have these new machines that we utilize called technology. And as I talked about previously in other episodes, that technology is art, skills, and craft. Right? So technology is not just the physical aspect of the extensions of the mind, but it's how you use it. It's the art of it. It's the craft of the mind. It's the skill of the mind. It's the skill of thinking. So your mind is a technology, and to harness the power and full capability of that technology, there's a process. There's a formula. There's a way of going about that so you can achieve and reach that zenith, and you can live at the higher self, right? And it's not some spookyism. It's a real way of living. When I was reading this book, my brother talked about cleanliness. And what it made me do is go do some research on feng shui. And feng shui was talking about being in harmony with one's environments. And it's funny because it was originally for the dead. And they took a practice that was a veneration of the ancestors. And because they, venerated the dead so much and they almost worshiped them in a certain way, that they wanted to make sure that the dead were in a proper space to rest. So we say rest in peace, but they really wanted to make sure that they had peace when they rested, so they were in harmony, so much that they would study science and astrology to make sure that they were in the correct position. It was a science at that time. Today is more of an art. Right? And most of the things that we do now is more of an art rather than a science. And today we're going to dive in to the science of the mind, the mathematical mind, because when you think mathematical, you're thinking like God. That's right. And there's nobody better to have this beautiful conversation with than somebody who demonstrates that, right? Through his 7 books, through his teachings, through his lectures, through his physicality, right? Someone who I've seen over the years who's taught me so much, that has been a mentor for me from distance to where I just get to watch. I haven't had more than a 5-minute conversation with the brother before today, but I've listened to hours of his lectures and I've listened through his demonstration. His demonstration has spoke volumes, because when I look at a man's accomplishments, I look at the wars they go through. I look at what it must take when you stand in front of the camera and you shine and you smile. What's behind the difficulty of that smile, right? Because after difficulty comes ease, right? So it may look easy, but that's only because he is able to go through the beautiful struggle of the daily basis of being righteous. I know what that's like, and I know what it must mean. So that's what I look at and I honor when I see my brother Nuri Muhammad.
Man, thank you, brother 19 Keys. Man, it's such an honor to share space and time with you.
Yes, sir.
In the upper room.
Yes, sir.
It's a high-level conversation. The elevated places.
Yes, sir.
So I'm honored to be with you, Mighty Warrior.
Yes, sir. I want to start in this place because, I call them 19 keys. When I find a number 19 that stands out, and it leads me to other observations. Mm-hmm. And in your book, you talked about how Jesus said 1,900 different statements.
Yeah.
Right? And you spoke about how he was a savant. Right, where he graduated school, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And you went on to talk about him getting a lesson from a wise old man.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about that lesson that wise old man taught him, and what was the abilities that he was training and preparing Jesus for.
Wow. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad, as we needed him to do, gave us something called the true history of Jesus.
Yes, sir.
Because when you read the testimony of Jesus in the Bible, it's coming from King James's version. And if you look at the first page of the Bible, it says this was diligently compared, then revised. Well, the word revised means to alter from original form.
Yes, sir.
And after it was revised, altered from original form, then it was given his version of it. A version is a person's particular perspective. And based upon where you stand in judgment of an object and what's in your view blocking it determines what your version will be. So if a car accident takes place, one person right there on the corner with nothing blocking them is going to give one report. But somebody 3 miles away with a building in front of them, their judgment. So when you look at the life of King James, he's a man that was a slave trader. Think about what's the first place we landed in America? Jamestown, Virginia. First body of water, James River.
Yes, sir.
When Willie Lynch came, 1712, he said, gentlemen, we sit at the bank of the James River. Our glorious and illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish. That's a slave trader, maker, saying he cherishes this version. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that there's a lot of missing ingredients to the life of Jesus that will give us power to be able to be a proper follower of him. And he gave us something, the true history of Jesus, that he got from his teacher, Master Father Muhammad, that talked about the making of Jesus from the time of a child to becoming who we knew him to be later on at the right hand of the Father. And that story was Jesus on his way home from school at the age of 11, learning by a man. They taught him in 3 lessons what was called by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad the radio in the head, which was tuning in, the ability to communicate and to transmit and receive from the brain and pick up on what people were thinking before they ever said or acted on it. Jesus was taught that kind of power, and you see hints of it in the Bible. You'll hear it'll say, and Jesus, knowing their plans, moved thus and so. So as you see in scripture, when King Herod was out looking for Jesus, they kept showing up, and every time they showed up, he was already gone. The only time he got caught is whenever he wanted to get caught. So that showed that he knew how to tune up on people's thoughts, and that was radio in the head. Now, can we do it?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's
That's the mighty question.
That's the question. That's the question.
It's interesting because I would imagine most people have had moments, right, where they have tapped into a higher power, right? You know, intuitive inclinations, psychic moments, clairvoyancy, to where they like, I know I tuned into that. You know, it's at this point in time where I know when somebody texts me, I'm gonna get a thought about it without looking at my phone. Right. I can, you know, I'm always thinking about the future. And which is what you talked about, the 3 different sights. Hindsight, foresight, and what was the other one?
Insight.
Which I thought was profound because it's just a compass of looking at the past, present, and future. And so as somebody who's constantly looking for the future, or looking towards the future, I look for innovation, right? I look for what cycles are we at? What it requires is not only study and research, but it requires a level of intuitive power. And without mathematical power behind that intuitive power, you may not understand your intuition, right? And to be able to process what exactly are you telling yourself? And then a lot of people lack trust within self. So when they have that intuition, they go against their gut. They go against their brain, right? And so that's when you have all of those moments like, I knew I should, but you didn't.
And so, you know, what you're saying is so powerful because what the God did is he allowed us to tap in to the ability to tune in or have radio in the head in spurts without ever doing what we needed to do to qualify ourselves to have it. So you'll find somebody that says, you know, I haven't seen somebody in 30 years that I went to high school with. You just think about them. Now all of a sudden they're at the grocery store. Or back when we used landlines, you pick up your phone, getting ready to call somebody, and they already on the phone. Or you just, you somewhere and you know everything that's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
You're like, oh, he going to say this. She going to say that. This going to happen. And then because we don't think enough of ourselves, we slap some French term on it.
Right.
Deja vu.
Deja vu.
No, that's the God power.
Yes, sir.
So what it shows is that the mind has the ability to leave the body, take a tour of the future, gather notes up and bring it back to the present.
Yes, sir.
And show you those notes. Really, in truth, that's what vision is.
Yes, sir.
Vision is the mind's ability to leave the body in the present, take a tour of your future, gather the notes up of what your future looks like, come back, show you your notes, and use those notes to inspire you to become what you've seen you could do.
Yes, sir.
So that clairvoyance, the telepathy, it's an innate skill in us, and we should have known it by the fact that they call it artificial intelligence.
Yes, sir.
So that before they even had this voice duplication that they call AI and being able to take a person that has passed away, use his voice and make him say, the original AI, artificial intelligence, was a television, radio,
yes, sir,
cell phone, tablet, laptop, computer, but all of them are cheap replicas of the original intelligence, which is the human brain. So whatever the artificial intelligence has done, the original intelligence can do that and then some, if it's left alone and cleaned up.
Yes,
so
sir.
that's the gift. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whenever they asked him in the Theology of Time question and answer session, after learned about this tuning in, how can we do it?
Yes, sir.
And he said, it's not something that you can go and learn. It's a gift that God gives you whenever you keep yourself clean inside and out for 20 to 35 years. And he'll give you the gift of being able to tune in. So we have the ability. The brain is a transmitter, but it's also a receiver.
Yes, sir.
And we just got to clean
powerful.
up and get the dross off so that the signal can get out and we can receive the signal and act accordingly.
So you have to have a clean mind, a clean body, clean spirit.
Yeah.
So how does one go about cleaning themselves up?
Simple formula. You know, when you look at, and this is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on page 57, paragraph 3 in How to Eat to Live. He said that the two bodies, brain and stomach, have a lot in common. What hurts one hurts the other. What affects one affects the other. So now you see scientists talking about this gut brain now, and the fact that the brain and the stomach or the digestive system and the mind are not independent, but they're interdependent.
Yes, sir.
They have bidirectional communication. The mind sends information to the stomach, but then also 200 million nerves in there send information to the brain. So the scientists of this world, they say that there are only 2 gates that make up your mind, the eyes and the ears.
Yes, sir.
But based off of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying, it's 3 gates. It's the eye, the ear, and the mouth.
Yes, sir.
So what makes the mind have the raw material to build itself out of and build our life is not just what we look at, observe, or what we listen to, but it's also what we put in our mouth and eat. So in the world of food and information, there's only 2 types of food and 2 types of information. It's either tonic or it's toxic. Toxic is that which is negative, that which is bad for you, promotes disease. Tonic is that which is positive, true, and promotes healing. So you got to do the math. We got to do our math. Okay, what am I? It's what I'm eating. It's what I'm thinking. And just for the record, when you look through social media, they call that your timeline, your feed. Because you're eating it.
Yes, sir.
So when we start gauging to feed the mind and to feed the mouth through the eyes, the ears, and the mouth, to feed it tonic, that which is good and pure. There's a verse in Philippians 4:8 that says this: whatever is good, true, pure, holy, righteous, of a good report, think on these things. We have to abandon the toxic, which is the sickly thoughts, weak thoughts, and the thoughts that are sinful. And the more we think on those pure and put the right food in our mouth, the right images in our eyes, the right words in our ears, then we began to clean ourselves up inside and out. And the next thing you know, we don't need AT&T no more.
Yeah.
And Verizon and the whole group of people, we can use our minds to send a message and get it back.
Yes, sir. I think sometimes when people do tap in, I think they become fearful of what they find, right? I think some people want to exist at a lower state. It's like success comes with responsibilities, right? And when you become more sensitive and more in tune with, your environment, the emotions of other people, you become more empathetic. That state is not always something that a person can stay in, right? And they say, wait a minute, this is too much. And when you have an environment that's not conducive to the sensitivity of that state, right? Then you say, I would rather go back and revert, right, to a lower state rather than have to keep up this standard, right? And so it's like you have a clean room, right? And it's perfectly clean. Let's say, you have a maid come over and she cleaned it better than you ever cleaned it. Every speck of dust is out of there. Right now, you got this responsibility of maintaining this state of cleanliness. Otherwise, you have to hire this outside management in order to do it for you consistently. So I look at that as like when we reach these higher states, whether we're reading more, whether we're eating right, or whether we're detoxing digitally or from harmful or toxic environments, it's like now it's the pressure of maintaining that.
Yeah, that's good teaching. So what something you said made me think of just a thought, a phrase that I tell the young soldiers going into the schools. And I tell them, be careful sharing big ideas with small-minded people. Because the minute that you share a big idea with a small-minded person, the first thing they're going to want to do is try to show you how hard it's going to be or how impossible it is. Because normally they didn't punked out on their dreams in life. So they misery loves company.
Yes, sir.
So you, in that sense, once you began to tap in, you have to be careful sharing those big ideas with small-minded people, because they're going to provide a confluence of thought process that might talk you out of knowing what you know. The other side too, there was a situation that happened with me, because just like you said, as you move through the world and you start learning knowledge of self, God, time, the enemy, and you start becoming sympathetic and really empathetic with your people, then that's one of our impediments right now as Black people. We have sympathy for one another, but we need to graduate to have empathy for one another. See, sympathy means that I don't like something bad happens to you, but empathy means that when something bad happens to you, I feel it like as if it happened to me.
Yes, sir.
And when we get to that point, that means that your son, your daughter, my son, my daughter, that we become uncles to them. That's our nieces and nephews. We feel their pain and we handle them accordingly. A white homosexual man came to me and shook my hand, and he had several $100 bills in it. And he shook it and he said, I just wanted to say something to you. He said, there's a lot of people that are drawing strength from you that you may not even know. And I'm one of them people. He said, but I'm watching how much you're doing, and I just want to share something with you. You can't be all things to all people if you're nothing to yourself. So make sure you take care of yourself. And I ain't gonna lie, I probably wouldn't have stayed there for the whole conversation, but that handshake with the $100 bills helped me out. It helped me. I was very inspirational.
It strengthened it a little posture.
Okay, I'm listening.
A little more patient.
But that shows, as we was talking off the air.
Yes, sir.
See, the wisdom of God is not limited to come through a channel that you approve of.
Yes, sir.
So he brought something that made me know that's what the person that you saw. So the person that becomes sensitive and tapped in and in tune with self and to a higher expression starts feeling a little bit uncomfortable around people and really starts feeling a certain level of pain because of empathy. So now I'm saying to them, like he said to me, be careful. You can't be all things to all people if you're nothing to yourself. So don't be so much into the care of others that you forget to neglect yourself. There's a verse in the Quran that says, what he said like this, it says, do you enjoin others in the doing of good while you neglect your own soul? Have you no sense at all? So study, but don't study just to teach, study to learn for yourself.
Yes, sir.
Go out to heal, but also get involved in those personal practices that can help you heal yourself.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think that kind of tapped in brother or sister that's operating at a higher frequency, that if they be careful sharing their big ideas with small-minded people and don't allow their empathy, the pain of others, to have such an effect on them because they're also taking care of their own soul,
yes, sir.
Then they'll be able to navigate still.
Yeah, I deeply relate to that, because I see it all the time, right? On my own journey,
yes, sir.
Right? When you reach any pinnacle of success, within our environments and our culture and society, we start to get guilt, right? It's the success guilt, survivor's guilt. I made it here, you not there. Now you feel this responsibility to bring everybody with you, but you're not really empowered to do that yet. All it's going to do is bring you back down to where they are, right? And so understanding, I think it was Baba Kamana that called it not being selfish, but self-full, right? Knowing when to fill yourself up, right? To where you have enough and what percentage that you can give out to others. Because even in finances, it's going to be a percentage that you allocate towards everything.
Right.
And it's the same thing, and money is just a transference of energy. So as we talk about that, we're talking about the same way as we move as human beings, right? It's the amount of energy and percentage of energy that you can afford to give to everything, right?
Right.
So as I think about that, and we talk about a mathematical mind, right? How does one have that spirit of discernment to know, right, what percentage of energy, and is there a factor of importance when it comes to those three gates, right? Is the mouth more important, the eyes or the ears more important when one is beginning to clean themselves up with the things that they digest?
Wow. I would say this, from my little study and time of being a student of the minister, he said this, and this kind of will help budget your time so you don't feel like you have to be so hands-on to help somebody. He said the best and only way to produce change in others is to lead by example.
Yes, sir.
He said nothing speaks louder than an example. So once we understand that concept, now we can say that I feel justified, not guilty anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I feel proper when I'm making an investment in my beingness, not so much all of my sayingness or my doingness for other people. My
Yes, sir.
beingness for them is what. So whenever somebody sees something and they don't market no product that is supposed to produce change or transformation without a before and a after.
Yes, sir.
So when people can see and know your before and then know your after, the interested one is going to say, man, that's me. I'm before, but I want to be the him after.
Yes, sir.
Let me start studying and observing him. So your example begins to speak louder than any word that you could have. In the science of those three gates, you know, there's a scripture in 3 John that says, above all things, God talking, brethren, I wish that you would prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth. So these are three categories. Prosperity, that's the acquisition of material wealth. Health, which is, you know, people always say health is wealth. No, health is way more valuable than wealth.
Yes, sir.
In the Holy Quran, it says that when a person is all the way on their deathbed, sick, I don't care how rich they are. This is my interpretation, my translation of it.
Yes, sir.
They will give all the wealth they had in their possession and all the wealth of the world to be able to stay on the scene a few more days. So health trumps wealth. But the God is saying, above all things, brother, I wish you to be prosper, be in good health. But look, even as thy soul prosper. Even means in addition to, but when you look at the word even, it also means on the same level as. So now the prosperity, the success, the economics, the fulfillment physically in the material world, the health, it has to come up to the level of where the soul is.
Yes, sir.
So I wouldn't put an importance on the ear, the eye, or the mouth. I would say, think which one or what you're putting in any of the three that feeds the soul.
Yes, sir.
Then the health, and then build your wealth. And if we're doing that, you know, and for the record to those in the viewing audience, soul food is not greens with no ham hock in the corner.
Yeah.
Soul food, not no cornbread and no pork chop. That's not soul food. That's slave food.
Yes, sir.
Soul is the essence of God deposited in man. You can't feed that with trichina worm infested meat. You have to feed it with truth, feed it with righteousness, feed it with that which is good. And when you do that, if that goes in the gates, that tonic, it's going to promote healing. And so, you know, they all interdependent. I wouldn't separate one from the other. I would say that all three are important. I'm leaning heavily to the eye because the eye is the only part of the brain that's exposed to the world.
Yes, sir.
But what we see, what we observe, what we listen to, and what we eat work in concert with one another to provide the mind with the raw material to build itself up and to build our life.
Yes, sir. So I got a question. I want to ask it like this so you can build on top of this. And it's simple. What is a thought?
Wow. Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this. He just dropped it out there. He said, thoughts are real. They're unseen, but they're not unreal. So the scientists, when they look at the physicality of thought, and we kind of can tell that thoughts are substantive. They're fast moving. You can't see them, but we know that they're real because certain thoughts in a certain environment can change the way the air is in that environment.
Correct. So
you go in an environment where people thinking crazy and talking crazy, you'll say, what, man, I was there, but I don't know what they was talking about or what they was thinking about, but the air was so thick I could have cut it with a butter knife.
Yes, sir.
But you go into a home of a spiritual family that's kind and nice, and you'll say, it's just something about this. It's just so, the air seems so light. It's a healing. What happened? The thoughts renegotiated the molecular structure of the air that people are breathing in that environment. Good and clean thoughts make the air light and easy to breathe and have healing properties in them. But negative thoughts, slander and gossip speech ends up slowing down those molecules, dulling them, making it a thick, smoggy environment. So the scientists say thoughts are electrochemical energy, fast moving fluid with electrical charge in it. That's deep, because if the messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is telling us that what affects the stomach affects the mind, and what affects the mind affects the stomach, what's the goal of digestion? It's to turn solid into liquid, or to turn physical into chemical. And then once the food is broken down into chemical form, whatever the ingredients of the food in chemical form are, it integrates with the blood. It now begins to travel through the 60,000 miles of arteries through the human body. He said it takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for one drop of blood to go from the top of your head to the crown, sole of your foot, back to the crown of your, so it circulates in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So if I'm breaking down food into chemical and my thoughts are chemical, then when the chemicals of the food get to my brain, they integrate and mix with the chemicals of my thought. So even if I was thinking good thoughts, if I'm eating bad food, my good thoughts can be corrupted. So they're interdependent in that sense. So thoughts, we should see them not as little ghost words moving around in our head or in the atmosphere, but we should see them as electrochemical energy that have commands inside of them.
Yes, sir.
And know that whatever we're eating can even mess with what we're thinking.
That's profound, and it gets me to thinking. So, because it's the two part. When you digest something, it's matter going to chemical, right? But when you transmit something, it's the chemical going to matter.
Right.
Now, in the domain of the mind, you know, you can think and build any world in your mind with no resistance. I had a dream just this morning. I woke up early, you know what I mean? I ate a little yogurt this morning, drunk some water, right? Very early. First of all, I do not like digesting in the morning. It's tough for me. I usually do a little intermittent fasting. But I went back to sleep, right? It was a little too early for me. But as I went back to sleep, I was dreaming, but I became aware in the dream. So I started to lucid dream. And so I get excited when I lucid dream. The problem is I only had so much time because I also had to urinate. So I'm like in real life, but I'm cognitive that I'm dreaming, but my physical body needs to go to the restroom.
Right.
So I know that I only have so much time before I'm gonna wake myself up and go to the bathroom. So I just started to have some fun in my dream, right? So that's when I became like, you know, Neo. He realized in the Matrix he had power. So I started moving things around. I just started waving stuff with my hand, and I had this ability to just control reality instantaneous, right? There was no limitation of my belief because I understood the laws of this realm, right? The difference is when I awake, if I try to wave my hand and move furniture, it's not going to do it the same because the laws of the three-dimensional world is different than in the domain of the mind, right? And so as we talk about thoughts and thought wars, right? We live in a world where man is in competition with each other for the ideas, right? In this world. And there's only so much space, right? But we all have to operate utilizing the laws, right, of this dimension in order to manifest in this reality. So I want to dive a little more into, right, how does one become more powerful that their thoughts are the thoughts that win in the day?
Well, that's a good question. And just to add a footnote to what you were saying in one of your points, in reference to the reality of a dream.
Yes, sir.
You know, in the Holy Quran, the way that God communicates in the Bible too, with messengers and prophets, he either gives them a vision or a dream, or the highest form of communication, they say, is speaking face to face with God. So, you know, we have to be very conscious of some of our dreams, because sometimes those dreams are a manifestation of revelation that's coming from the God to help us to see things that we wouldn't see had we not been, quote unquote, unconscious and available for him to talk to us in that way. Then, of course, we also got to be conscious that sometimes our dream is just that Haagen-Dazs that we ate at 11:30 at night, you know, causes some chemical, I don't know. But that point, just to consider that, you know, consider that that the dreams sometime are revelation.
Yes, sir.
To expose us to a knowledge of self or others or circumstance that we wouldn't have been able to tune into had we been awake and distracted by the known. The mind war that goes on is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about the two natures inside of man that Yaqub found. He said that there was a black germ.
Yes, sir.
And a brown germ.
Yes, sir.
And he broke the brown germ down to its lowest form and produced a whole new people called Caucasian or white. He took the black to brown, brown to the yellow, yellow to the white over a 600-year time period. But the black germ technically is positive. Brown germ, negative. That's an internal war.
Yes, sir.
Going on. So in the among the Navajos, they say it like this. They don't say black germ, brown germ. They tell the young that inside of you there lives two wolves, a good wolf and a bad wolf. And of course, the young soldiers, they always ask, well, which, grandfather, which wolf wins? And they say easy, whichever one you feed the most. Think about that. In the Quran, in Surah 50, it says that every soul comes with it a driver and a witness. Witness is the unseen force that inclines us to do good. Driver is the unseen force that inclines us to do evil.
Yes, sir.
Cartoons, even back in the day, Daffy Duck, he's being tempted by who? Himself. Daffy Duck with a devil outfit on.
Yeah.
On the other side, Daffy Duck with an angel outfit on. This is the representation of the duality in nature. So in that mathematics, how does one win that thought war? Easy. Whichever one you feed the most.
Yes, sir.
So two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. That's a mathematical law that's found in physics. We got one brain, one mind. In the Quran, it says it like this: we hurl truth at falsehood, and it knocks out its brains, and lo, falsehood vanishes. So anything that is inappropriate, negative, or an unwanted thought or idea, we have to push it out by the good and starve it to death. Don't feed it. Don't feed the bad wolf. Don't feed the brown germ. Don't feed what they call in the East the yang. Don't feed the driver. Don't feed the devil. Feed the God in you. And the more we do that, at some point, there won't be any space left for anything that is toxic.
Right.
You've downloaded a 100% tonic.
Nah, I was seriously up all night. You know what I mean? I took a couple of drops of this, and I think I took it too late, right? I took it probably around like 5 o'clock. I didn't think it was gonna keep me up to like 2, 3 o'clock. But it was good though, because I was doing hella work. Like I was knocking it out because I had to do a lot of stuff on the back end for the show. But the disclaimer on this one, don't take this if you want to goddamn be focused. If you don't want to be focused all day long, just knocking it out with no distractions. Because my mind was calm. I had my system ready to go. I was energized. And I was just boom, 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 boom. And once I got in that flow, I couldn't be distracted nor slanted nor taken off. You feel me? That SuperMIND really have you up there going. It's like Viagra for the brain. It had me definitely mentally up all night, for sure. Because it almost got to a point where it felt like I couldn't tell when I was supposed to go to sleep because I didn't get no drowsiness. But then I realized that once I got into bed, I was able to naturally just fall into a sleep. So it was still good. It wasn't one of the ones that just, had me with insomnia. It would just basically tell me when you want to go to sleep, you can. But beyond that, that SuperMIND had me working. Yeah, this is my fix. I don't need nothing else for real. That gets me thinking about, our current state of society, because what we currently digest, right, is nothing but the devil.
Yeah.
Right? We have a society that is wholly demoralized, completely lacks of values, right? So therefore, most people are stripped of the strength that is required to be defensive or offensive against the devil. Right? So they can't filter what comes to them because they've also built these algorithms. You click one thing, you like it one time, right? You may have just been goofy at the moment, and then they send it to you again 10 more times.
That's right.
So now you're digesting more of that thought, feeding that thing. And we see this because we have influencers, we have companies, we have institutions, corporations. The ones that continue to grow decade over decade is the one that we literally feed with energy, right? We give them our money, we give them our time, right? We give them our resources.
Right.
It's the same thing if you walk into somebody, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. Okay, what about the person you usually talking about somebody you dislike or hate?
Right, that's right.
What about somebody that's beneficial to you? Are you going to go with the same vigor and passion to that person and tell them, I love you so much?
Right.
We normally not going to do that.
Right.
But when it's that anger that pops up, we don't know all the time how to turn that alchemical process into something that's positive for us. So I remember I was talking with my brother Wallstreet to say, you know, the problem a lot of times is that the devil be working hard and the gods be doing lazy, right? And it's like, no, I see you get out there and run marathons.
Yes, sir.
You're not a lazy God.
Yes, sir.
And what I mean by that is some people believe that my moral goodness is enough. No, there has to be work and execution. There has to be electricity behind that to empower it so that thought becomes a part of the field of reality that people are digesting. Because the devil be working 24 around the clock and he go come up with a system for a system for a system.
No, that's right.
You know what I mean? And then he go come up with a plan for a plan for a plan.
That's right.
Right? Because he already know how smart the God is.
Right.
So he know that he's going against the impossible odds. So he's trying everything possible to try to even those odds.
Right. You know, that's so profound because that is the reality. You know, we are, the way that it looks like no prophet has ever lived in this world before. And no real teacher has ever taught any wisdom, morals, virtue. It looks like no one has ever knew how to be a man or a woman or a husband or a father or a mother or a wife. It looks like no teacher has been here. So scripture says it like this though, resist the devil and he will flee from you. So now we're talking, how you say, man, how do I even get the strength up to resist whenever I'm being bombarded? There's an old saying that opportunity may only knock once, but temptation is leaning on the doorbell. It's always available. So the Holy Quran tells us really that the beauty of it, if you don't have it, get you a Quran, because what happens is there's 7 conversations in there where God and the devil are talking to each other. And because of Satan's arrogance, he exposes his whole playbook.
Yes, sir.
Because he tells the God in one spot, he said, look, respite me to the day when they are raised. And then God says, surely thou shalt be respite. Respite means delay my doom, delay my judgment. Then look at Satan. So after he gets a delay on his judgment, now he lays out in these 7 different places everything he's going to do to defeat man. He said, I'm going to cause him to become ungrateful. I'm going to make him remain disappointed.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to cause him to take his low desires as a God besides God. I will make all of them deviate. So now, if I'm in a world and I know Satan's playbook, so okay, one thing I got to make sure that I don't become ungrateful.
Yes, sir.
So gratitude's got to be an operation I engage in daily. Remaining disappointed means that I can't allow myself that when something bad happens to get depressed. Then I can't allow myself to take my low desires as a God, and I can't deviate. I can't fall away from what I know is good, true, and right. And if I hold my position, then I'm resisting the devil. And even though he says he's going to come from before us, from behind us, from our right side, and left, I mean, he's coming from everywhere.
Yes, sir.
We still will be able to win that war. When we talked earlier today, I was thinking about the verse in Ephesians 6, when you were talking about thought wars.
Yes, sir.
There's a scripture in Ephesians 6 where Paul says that we war not with flesh and blood, but we war with principalities and the rulers of the darkness of this world. Look at this. And spiritual wickedness that exists in high places. Now, most preachers will teach this to mean that we're clashing with political and social governments and systems But the real spiritual wickedness that exists in high place, you'll know where it is because look at the weapons we were told to get. A breastplate of righteousness, a helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, the belt or loins girded with the truth, feet shod in the gospel, and above all, he said, the shield of faith. All these are spiritual, psychological weapons, letting us know that the real battle ain't against the Democrat, the Republican, this no, the real battle is in here. This is where it's at. So our task is to put on that whole armor of God.
Yes, sir.
And if you operate in the world and you thinking that you're not a warrior and a soldier and that you're not at war to keep your mind, then you're going to be a victim of the default menu of this world, which is everything you laid out. The default menu of this world is you're going to be a victim, not a victor. You're going to be one that copes with life, not conquers life. You're going to be a slave, not a master. But if you become a warrior, put on that whole armor and stay grateful. Don't allow yourself to become too disappointed. Be disappointed enough to make a change, but don't remain in that state where you get depressed. Don't take your low desires for a God besides God, and don't step away and pull away from what you know is right. Then you will be resisting the devil and he will flee.
So that makes me think about parasites, because parasites have to have a certain environment in order for them to thrive. And they must promote inside of you the want to eat and do things so that they can thrive. Right? So that you're going to start getting cravings of sugar, cravings of the things that the parasite inside you needs in order for it to thrive. But in the opposite in that environment, because that's the toxic environment, and the opposite in that tonic environment, if you have a clean body, right? And you starve the parasites, right? Now you don't have the same mood disorders. Now you don't have these energy fluctuations. Now you're not itchy all around, right? Now you don't have the inflammation in your body and in your thought process. And so it gets me to the point of cleanliness.
Yes, sir.
Right? Because you said something profound about cleanliness, and I don't even want to say it. I want to let you say it. Because the common saying is that cleanliness is next to godliness.
Cleanliness is godliness.
Come on with it.
That's what the minister said. He said it's not next to it, is.
Come on with it.
It is godliness. So you can't have organized thoughts in a disorganized environment.
Yes, sir.
You can't have clean thoughts in a dirty environment. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said this in one of his messages. It blew he almost blew a circuit. He said that environment is stronger than heredity.
Yes, sir.
I said, so you telling me that here we are, we created in the image and likeness of God. We the original man, the makers, the owners, the cream of the planet Earth. We gods of the universe.
Yes, sir.
We are born with God's genetic makeup, holy heredity, divine DNA, prosperity's built in our plasma. We engineered for greatness, manufactured for excellence. All that's in us.
Yes, sir.
And then you telling me just me being in the wrong environment that it can override all of that, that is recorded on the cellular level? And the answer is yes. So whenever we want to be clean, we got to make sure that we clean up the environment that is around us, where we live, where we drive, what we wear. And by doing, matter of fact, I can't prove it, but a clean car runs better.
Yes, sir.
I can't, but it seems like it does if it don't.
It definitely feel like
in a house, when you get clean, you feel better.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, they Deion Sanders, he always say, if you look good, you feel good.
Yes,
if
sir.
you feel good, you play good, and if you play good, they pay good. Something like that. I think it's right. But point is,
sounds about right to me.
The cleanliness, though.
Yes, sir.
It's not next to godliness. It is godliness, and as you said, we have to make sure that the outside reflects the inside, and vice versa.
Right.
So you can't have a real clean house that you live in and then mess up the temple.
Yes, sir.
God lives in. Brother Keys, it broke my heart. Just the other day, I was riding down the street and I seen a brother in a Lambo in McDonald's drive-thru. I said, if this ain't awkward, you ain't catch
that. Ain't the analogy for the society today.
I said, how then you know you got to put premium octane fuel in the car.
Right.
But you in here getting the lowest grade of fuel for your body. What kind of man is willing to take care of a mode of transportation and getting from the east side to the west side better than he takes care of this mode of transportation God is going to use?
Yes, sir.
To get from here to the next world, to the future. So we gotta change. We gotta renegotiate our contract,
right?
With that, and make sure that we don't put so much energy in the outside and neglect the inside.
I just love this concept of cleanliness, because it's interesting because as a creative, right, creativity can cause chaos because creativity can be a disruptive force, right? It comes to literally change things up, to do things out of norm, right? To reorder things. Right. And it's the same thing with technology. Technology doesn't come to keep things the same. It comes to change things from where they are. So it's almost a waging of a war, right? To move things from where they are. It's a force. But after that force, there always has to be a settling. Right. And then once that settling, because when you have that force, which is motion, the next law comes is order. Right. And so I think about that in the environment of self, from your biological level of what you intake and what you eat, in the order that your organs have to be organized in to properly function and flow, and they have to be clean. But then from the feng shui of your environment, right? That feng shui comes from, what is it? Wind and water, right? They believed, that it's so important how you order your house, right? It said that Donald Trump, part of his first success was that he would hire, right, when it started to become popular, feng shui in Western society, he hired them to put all his hotels in order so that he can attract all of the Asian investors and people that wanted to come. And they said this was actually part of his success, because he studied some of that Eastern knowledge that came from that part of the world, right? And he utilized it here in Western society. But understanding the order and the flow of things, as I'm reading your book, it had me looking at my environment, right? Because when sometimes you look at a genius and you say a person that got attention deficit disorder or something, they got to have everything in its right place. Nothing can be out, right? Everything has to have its order. But they took it to a point of there is a grid in which you operate from a scientific, a mathematical, and an astrological level, to where that even if they said don't put a mirror in front of the door because all it does is reflect the energy right back out. They said don't have your desk to the back of a window because they got this poison dart theory, right? That any operational where like a ninja, a spy can shoot a poison dart at you, then that's a bad way to order your house, right? And so, but when you think about it, you go to a place that has good feng shui, you feel better. The energy is lighter. So they have it to where they're setting it up based on the elements, right? And what it just gets me to thinking is that we stop thinking as a society mathematical, right? We stop, people admire the pyramids because they are aligned mathematically, and they are aligned based on using astronomy, right? But in daily life, we don't operate based on an order of things. So even when I talked to Dr. Wester, we talked about, innovation, and we talked about technology and why, certain information is not revealed to specifically, the world, right? Because we're not ready for it. And the example was technology, right? Technology and the ripple effects it has when man learns certain knowledge. And it becomes destructive in the sense that now you go and, you go to Congo. So as you may enjoy the phone, right? Now they over there ripping cobalt off the ground and there's a genocide, right? Then you have all of these other cancerous effects, and you look at social media and now there's a mental health crisis, and there's so many different effects that come from it. If it was a clean technology, then the effects of that technology should also ripple and benefit, not detriment.
See, but you're saying what should happen. Always, my wife laughs because I always, when somebody says that, I said, that's too much like right. She's like, why do you say that?
Yeah.
Too much like right. Because we live in a world that's not ruled by righteous people.
Yes, sir.
This is a world ruled by Satan. So what they are doing, if they had the proper why. See, your why power really fuels your willpower. That your motive for why you do things. The minister said like this. He said, the more pure the motive, the more sustained the action. Whenever they are engaged in what they're engaged in, they're thinking about depopulation. They're thinking about making money for themselves. They're not thinking about actually freeing people, helping people. Even when you go to the doctor really is not a doctor. He's a pharmacologist.
Yes, sir.
He's not trying to heal. He's a legal drug dealer. That's all he's doing. And he's like a kingpin. He don't keep no dope on him.
Yeah.
He just writes you a little script. Say, go to the trap. CVS, Walgreens, go to my trap house.
Yeah.
Go to the back and they'll hook you up, man. Put you in a little plastic bag with a staple on. Go on and go get you some hand sanitizer, sticker bar with it, but it's still a trap house.
Yeah.
But they're not interested in curing. They like suppressing symptoms so they can keep you addicted too. So when you talked earlier, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us that teaching. He said the first law of the universe was motion. And the second law was order.
Yes, sir.
I haven't even heard him teach on a third or fourth law. He's only put them two out. So once you got motion, you have to have order, because without order, the motion becomes chaos.
Yes, sir.
And chaos is not constructive, it's destructive.
Yes, sir.
So that's how we have to do with our lives. We have to have order in our lives, and the order of life starts off with the moral order that comes from divine law, statutes, and commandments. And the more righteous we become, the more powerful we become. Something we shared in this book that I got from the minister that another point, Brother Keys, blew my mind. Because all my life I've been taught knowledge is power. So all I got to do, put a lot of knowledge in my head, I'm going to be powerful. But on page 92 of the book Torchlight for America, the minister said this, paraphrasing. He said that the true and real power of the mind comes from righteousness. When you can lay down at night knowing that you have not violated any of the laws of God nor the rights of your fellow man, then that kind of mind has the power to vision and bring into reality what it visions. So I'm thinking opposite what, most people say just get a lot of knowledge, but you got to also multiply it by righteousness. And he said this, he said, character is the sea by which knowledge floats. He said, if you have knowledge, but you don't have any character, just imagine a ship in shallow water. It can't go nowhere. So it is when we don't have a life of character. If we have knowledge, but we don't have our morals, we don't have our character in place, then the ship of our knowledge won't be able to get from where it is to where we want it to be. So those are some of the spiritual systems of order. We got to look at the restrictive laws of Islam. We got to look at the Sharia law. We have to look at the 10 commandments. We have to look at the law, statutes, and commandments and the habits that God gave in scripture and organize our life accordingly. And from that righteousness,
yes, sir,
our mind is going to have more power, and we'll have the ship of knowledge floating on character. It didn't go anywhere it wants to go.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I definitely believe that 100%. The moral quality of your life is your success, right? Yeah. And because that's where you're going to produce heaven or hell for yourself. Nobody outside of self has to punish you for a thing, right? That reinforcing system that tells you shame or guilt, right? That's going to be the one that punish you and produce hell for you.
That's right.
And you're going to be, no matter how much money you got, no matter how much exterior success, if the inside of your house is unclean, right? Then it's not worth much.
Right.
You walk in there, you have to clean up that house. That's the first thing. If somebody bought it, they know it's you come work for somebody, and they want to bring out your potential. Well, they got to clean you up first, right? So that they can coach you into your higher self, because one can see it, but if you can't be it, then it don't matter.
Right.
But you talk about the human potential, and you often utilize physics, right? And when we talk about physics, is really the science of the unseen, right? But it is a way for man to make logic, right, with that dimension of the universe.
Right.
And specifically, we talk about physics, we go back to thought, right? We're living in the age now of quantum machines,
Yeah.
right? They're trying to figure out who's going to be the first one to crack these quantum machines, because you look at artificial intelligence, it's like them mapping the brain.
Right.
And quantum machines is like them mapping the mind,
Right.
right? Where you can't go to a scientist and ask them exactly how the mind works.
Right.
There's too many areas of the brain they don't understand,
Right.
right? And the absence and the ignorance on the mind is vast.
Right.
So even when they built these quantum machines, they're still not going to understand how it operates. The goal of it is to do things that we don't understand and to solve problems that we can't solve. But you talk about even when we go into quantum thinking, right? How does one get to that higher essence of God thought, to where, I know we talked about tuning in, but are there other gifts?
Yeah.
Right? Are there skills that one can, train and produce within themselves while living to start producing that higher quality of quantum thinking?
That, the way of saying quantum is really a scientific term that means thought. So where they even got the concept of even being able to find out that there was a subatomic particle was the most honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
In the lessons, he said look, Mr. Muhammad cracked an atom into 10 million
we do say
parts.
cracking atoms.
All that time.
Yes, sir.
Before then, now everybody said the atom was the smallest particle of matter. But now Mr. Muhammad is saying, no, you can crack the atom into 10 million parts, and every part will still have the same power and ingredients that the other part had that it came from.
Yes, sir.
He said the whole universe could be found inside of that atom. So once they learned that, oh, wait a minute, okay, that let me see if we can do with it. They built the machine, cracked it, and then they went from atom, they found quark. Then they cracked quark, now they call it quantum. But that's only 2 cracks. It's still 9,998,000 more cracks that could be gone, and you still will have the power in that unit you find. So they just scratching the surface of the wisdom that God gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So if there is to be one that can get into that God mind, that quantum mind, we're going to have to get it from the man that first taught us that the God mind even existed on that level. And I would submit it would be the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the minister. So practical application for us on the human level. The God within. Every religion talks about this thing called the God within. But most people, if you ask them, what is the God within? I don't care if it's a bishop, preacher, a sheikh, a bulla, they will describe like an invisible ghost version of themselves inside their body. But the minister said this. He said the God within is not a ghost inside of your body. He said the will of God is the gift of God to man, and that is the essence of God. Will. Then he said that will is buttressed, supported by faith and knowledge, springs forth out of love, and is guided by love. So peel all that back. Now he's given us the 4 primary ingredients of what make up the God within. Willpower, faith, knowledge, and love. So if I want to get into that God mind and become more of a God where I can say be, and it is, and it don't take 7,000 years, it can happen in 7 minutes, like the Supreme Being can do, I've got to increase my faith, my knowledge, my willpower, and I got to do what I do with more love. And the more of these 4 ingredients we build up inside of ourselves, the more God gets strong in us, and we can begin to achieve things that we didn't think we could achieve. Because what can't God do? Well, whatever God can do, we can do.
Yes, sir.
If we develop him inside of us. So we are the underdeveloped gods with the potential to be a God. And if we increase in that faith, that knowledge, that willpower, and that love, the God power will get big.
How would you describe what willpower is?
Will, the minister said it this way. He said, will is the faculty of the mind that allows the mind to impose itself, paraphrasing, the power of the mind over its own self. So your ability, really mind, willpower is not just mind over matter. It's mind over mind. It's the ability to stop you what you think, redirect it, change it, or get rid of it. That's willpower. Willpower, the minister said this, he said, as strong as the will is in a man is as strong as the God is in the man. So our willpower is our ability to do what we say we're going to do. Can we maintain an action long after the excitement has worn off? Can we maintain an action even whenever we're fatigued? Can we put our word out there and make our word bond regardless to whom or what? Can we do what we should do when we should do it, whether we feel like doing it or not? That's willpower. So whenever you can make your yes, yes, and be willing to do as the messenger said, my word is bond and bond is life, and I'll give my life before my word shall fail. In other words, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm not going to quit until I'm dead. Otherwise, my will stay in motion. So that's it's mental muscle.
Yes, sir.
It's mind over mind over matter. It's the ability to maintain that action, even whenever distractions and excitement is worn off, still be able to stay true to what you said in your word and make it bond.
Yes, sir. I like that. It's that connection between man has with his word and his thoughts. And it was the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, I forget what year it was, but he was talking about mastering sexual urges. And he was explaining about how society has gotten to a point where, you know, we seek pleasures outside of self, right? And we seek pleasures in all of these lower desired ways, right? Whether it's through sex, social stimulation, drugs, whatever you have it. But he was explaining that the real pleasure is when man can take a thought and produce it into reality outside of his mind. And because man lacks that ability to do that today, a lazy, unwillful, tired, right, lack of ambitious man, then you seek that pleasure because man is going to need to be stimulated in some sort of way. But that stimulation is supposed to come from that activity in the mind producing constantly. So, you know, especially in this day and age where testosterone is literally low, right? Man's willpower is low. How does man increase himself to where, or how would you go about helping someone get to the point where they seek the pleasures of the mind and not the body?
Well, that lecture, and in truth, you know, I always say to myself and others that if we don't become what we're supposed to become, we'll never be able to say we wasn't well taught. We just didn't apply what we were taught. Because there's not a subject of life that we ever going to face that the minister has not unpacked several times. So that lecture, you can find it on YouTube. Satan is the master of sexual urges. It's from the 80s in the Final Call building. And he's on the chalkboard with the marker and the whiteboard, breaking it down. And he shows how urges, this was deep. He said urges have a voice. And the voice they use is your voice. So the same voice you hear in your head when you read, the same voice that you might hear a word from God, Satan himself uses the same voice to attach to the urge. So it sounds like you telling yourself to do this.
Right.
And if you're telling yourself to do it, it got to be right. So in that message, he said that real pleasure comes from, number one, discovering your gifts. Like the earth. He used an example of like the earth. You going down the treasure, you find diamonds and gold, you're going to feel good about that.
Yes, sir.
He said, but you'll feel even better when you go into yourself and find the gifts, skills, and talents that God placed in you. Then you have to bring out those gifts, skills, and talents and put it into service and build a life with it and help other people with it. Then he said that he used this verse. He said, how beautiful it is for brethren to dwell together in unity with one another. Another place of pleasure comes from the brotherhood, from the sisterhood, being in harmony with people of like minds that you love and that love you back.
Yes, sir.
You get pleasure from that. And then on top of that, he said, you get pleasure out of being able to envision what you want to do. Take their gift, skills, and talent, use it as tools to bring that vision into a reality. If we did that, Brother Keys, as you said, we would not need so much validation from the opposite sex in the form of a physical contact or even a compliment from them. We would be able to get fulfillment from within. And a man should love a woman and a woman should love a man. Both of them are created by God to give comfort and consolation to one another. That's what the scripture says. So, but it's never her comfort when you did no work. It's always her comfort after you did your work. And if you followed that system of those three, bringing vision into reality, digging out the talents within, skills within, putting them in the service for yourself, and having the love of the brotherhood and sisterhood, being in that kind of harmony with people of like minds, where pleasure really comes from, then we won't have the sexual perversity that comes from us bowing to the urges that we see. And we were talking the other day with a brother, and he's been wrestling with, he's successful, but he's been wrestling with, he's economically successful, has fortune and fame, but he's been wrestling with issues with being able to stay loyal in a relationship.
Yes, sir.
And he came clean, and so I was showing the brother different scriptures, and he was like, yeah, I understand it. I understand that. But look at this. Napoleon Hill was hired by Andrew Carnegie to study the 50 most successful people in the world, and he followed them for 20 years. Well, he also, Napoleon Hill, when doing the 50 most successful, ran into 25,000 people in them same fields that were failures. Do you know one of the biggest differences that he found among the two? He said that the 25,000 that were failures in the field were engaged in a whole lot of sexual promiscuity. But the 50, they had followed, he called it the law of transmutation, where they converted their sexual energy that they had for the opposite sex, and they rechanneled it and redirected it into becoming proficient in their craft or their business, and they stayed loyal to the one that they were with, called their husband or their wife. And that tells us that there is a certain amount of self that gets trapped or insisted whenever we are not living in accord with the code of right.
Yes,
so
sir.
if you really want to see more of yourself, more powerful, be more successful, then the more righteous we become, the more in harmony. And as you said, that inner voice, that self-accusing spirit. See, it's something about you define the world every day that's trying to get you to be wrong, get you to be weak, get you to be lazy, and you decide that you're not going to be that. It starts making you feel proud of yourself. And when you can lay down at night and say, man, I've been living a day that made me proud of me, and I've been living to the law and the code, and God might be proud of me too. When you go to sleep, you sleep good. When you wake up a conqueror, ready to go at it again. So that's something that could help us, I think.
Yes, sir.
With that, getting pleasure from the proper source.
Yes, sir.
So that whenever the pleasure comes from the other proper source that should be down the line, it ain't the primary and the only.
Yes, sir.
It's the last one that came after putting in great work.
Yes, sir. I love that. And I think that that's going to help and deeply resonate with a lot, because we definitely have a world of overstimulation, right? And just the need to feel, it's like, studies on boredom that shows that, children that learn to be in environments where they don't have to be overstimulated, right, are able to deal with studying and researching for long hours. And, other children call that boredom. But what it is it's not true boredom. It's that you think you need to be stimulated. And also when you grow up in environments of trauma, you're used to all of that stimulation, right? You're used to hearing the yelling, the problems, the issues, and you become addicted to that. And so it's such a familiar feeling, right, that you want it in your life. So, because that's what makes you feel comfortable.
That's right.
So, I've learned that, learning to be bored is a sign of a healthy mind, right? Learning to be in an environment like you don't need to be stimulated at this moment. Always thinking that you have to have these highs. And it's like, no, Just allow yourself to be at peace and relax and allow your mind to rest and to be in this state of calm and equanimity. But most people can't, because the world is constant pleasure, 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 dopamine hit, getting your brain to be hacked all the time. And so you never think that there's supposed to be just moments of calm.
Yeah.
But
I know from, you physically train.
Yes, sir.
All the time and do great resistance. You know that rest is a part of the workout.
100%.
So you can't, if you work out every day, at a certain point, you're going to injure the muscle.
Yes, sir.
So the rest time is whenever it begins to break down and then builds itself back up stronger.
Yes, sir.
So when the mind, that mental muscle, is not brought to times of peace by overstimulation, then you're causing your mind to be set up for confusion and not being able to function at its optimal level.
Yes, sir.
You got to, and look at the gifts. We call one of the descriptions of heaven is peace of mind.
Yes, sir.
So why wouldn't you want some peace of mind?
Yeah.
If it's part of heaven. So that's good. That's good teaching. And I would say this too: be careful that this world tries to package everything wrong with fun. Everything wrong is packaged with fun. I was talking or speaking last week, I think, and I was so frustrated just thinking about something, and I made a statement, and I said, I got to type this down. I said, I wish we were as fascinated with God's teachings as we are with the devil's entertainment. See, we excited about the devil's entertainment.
Yeah.
But how excited do we get and fascinated do we get with the teachings of the truth?
It's the devil's gossip versus God's gospel.
Yeah.
That's
right. That's right. So that kind of, the rest for the workout, and to know this, that learning should be fun. Getting new knowledge should be fun, because this is something you can put into service to improve your life and the lives of those that you love. But being entertained, I'm just entertained.
Well, I know you hear it all the time. People probably ask you, what you do for fun?
Yeah.
And it's like, I find pleasure in learning. I find pleasure in the expansion of my mind. There's nothing more, honestly, more pleasurable to me than when I actually find a new subject that invokes so much interest that I just dive in, right? Because I can't force that stimulation of interest. Certain subjects I just happen to be more interested in. Certain knowledge that I come about just excites me. And now I want to go down the rabbit hole of learning, and then I want to share it with others. So for me, that is a pleasurable thing, but we have shown playtime in one way. We have shown pleasure in one way. We have shown stimulation of activity in one way. So people don't even think that's fun. Right? They think that it has to be only, you got to be at the strip club to be having fun.
And that's what, so in the world of definitions, there's two definitions, connotation and denotation.
Yes, sir.
Connotation is the commonly accepted definition based off how somebody uses the word.
Yes, sir.
Denotation is the actual definition. So what you said, the connotation of the word fun, immoral is fun, or being entertained with no intellectual value to it. That's called fun. But when the minister was being interviewed by Brother Jabril in Closing the Gap, he said this as an answer. He said, fun is not fun if it doesn't have learning involved in it. I said, look at that. So if you can't extract some principles or some knowledge from the activity, you can't even call it fun.
Right.
So that's the denotation for what fun is, that overrides and should override the connotation that's accepted. But that's, one of the things too that will put us in that state of gratitude we talked about to help resist the devil and keep his playbook from working in our life is to just observe nature. See, sometimes you can bring your mind to rest just by saying, you know what, I'm not putting these AirPods in. I'm going on do not disturb. I'm not listening. Matter of fact, only thing I'm listening to is I want to hear how many birds I can hear.
Yes, sir.
I want to see how many different plants I can observe, and just thanking the God as you move around for in life. Those become real good pleasure moments to help ease the mind. And the minister said that communing with nature is one of the cures for the 7 devils. I said, wow, communing with nature.
Yes, sir.
Take your shoes off sometime and just stand on the grass.
Yes, sir.
And try to feel the electricity in the earth come through you. It's in there.
I did that today.
Yeah. See, that's it don't cost nothing either.
Nothing. It's free.
Free 99.
And it allows your body systems to flow. Allowing that, because we got different charges in our body, negative and positive. And we have too much of one, then that's when it becomes a toxic environment. Yeah. As we was talking about rest and the importance of rest, it's very important, right? I got this ring where it tracks my sleep, right? Lets me know when I'm getting a deep rest, or sometimes my cycle of rest, it have these interruptions in my sleep where it's not a deep rest and I'm almost basically awake. Like I can easily awake. You ain't sneaking up on me while I'm asleep.
Right.
But, when you become as you age, it's even more important that your sleep is at a high level quality. And unfortunately, they teach entrepreneurism as a burnout culture. Yeah. No, just work all throughout the night, burn out throughout the night, graveyard shift, right? Yeah. Closer to death. But the reality of it is, as we talk about our body and our systems, we have an immune system, or otherwise known as the lymphatic system. Yeah. But then we have a brain system that is the glymphatic system. And the glymphatic system was what does your brainwashing over the neurotoxins that you build up throughout your waking hours.
Right.
So the learning happens while you sleep. We're throwing stuff at the wall, trying to get it to stick. I'm listening to the conversation, but it don't process until I get a good quality of sleep. And this is where, when I think about the mathematical mind, I think about the precision of living and the science of living, right? You can tell your body what you want, and maybe your body can program to your program, right? But there's already a program that your body operates on. There's already a biorhythm. There's already times to where your body is going to activate muscle growth, right? There's a 10 o'clock, right? You say if you go to sleep at 10, you get that early sleep, you're going to wake up, right, with more muscle growth, right? You're going to wake up with more neuron growth, right? Yeah. To where those connecting axons are allowing that new information to build. Yeah. So if you don't know the science of living, you can be going against it and causing friction, right? And so even when we go back to feng shui, they was explaining that the point of the wind and the water is because when you find places of water and wind, that's when you have flow, right? If you can envision a picture, water right now, when wind, you drop a leaf in it, that's flow, right? But most of what we try to do is go up the river, right? We're not flowing with it. And most of our lives are so hard because we don't know the proper flow of life. And the mathematical mind maps out the science of living to make sure that you're living in the correct state so that you're not going against friction. So you're not sick. You're not mentally sick.
Right.
You're not going through more difficulties than you have to and constantly repeating those difficulties after you go through them, which I want to talk about as well. You wrote, it's a chapter in the book about the 3 difficulties that one must go through. What are they?
Well, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I want to see if I can remember the point I was going to tie into something that you said. Man. Yeah.
I be flowing with my thoughts. I just let them out.
Oh, this is what it was. So there's a scripture in the Bible that says that it's in Corinthians. It says that there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heaven. And then it starts laying out opposite extremes: time to be born, time to die, time to love, time to hate, time for peace, time for war. Time doing something and making it successful is hinged on the time as well. If you do the wrong thing at the wrong time, it produces a disaster. If you do the wrong thing at the right time, that's a mistake. even if you do the right thing, but it's at the wrong time, you're going to meet resistance.
Mm.
The only way to be successful is you got to do the right thing at the
In
right
time and
time.
on time.
By the time, surely man is in loss.
Yes, sir.
So in the Holy Quran, to show, they call it circadian rhythms and what have you, but in the Holy Quran it says this: surely the recital of the Quran at dawn is recorded.
Mm.
Where? Ain't no angel up in outer space with no tablet saying, aha, my servant read 13 verses today. Recorded in the brain.
Yes, sir.
So the same as a wise farmer knows that the best time to plant seeds on the farm is right before dawn. When the earth is at its most fertile stage, that's when they plant their seeds. So it is, the brain is at its most fertile stage right at dawn. So you can get more wisdom putting in 30 minutes of study at dawn than you can putting 3 hours of study in the middle of the day. Your mind is not bombarded with what you could be doing, should be doing, or want to do.
Yes, sir.
Number two, then you don't have the sound pollution that comes from the business of the world that makes you feel like you out of step with time. Let me hurry up and go do something else. So that kind of, I guess that can segue into those three things. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that there were 3 trials that we had to go through to come into existence, and we have to continue to stay in existence. He said the sperm had to overcome, number 1, a hostile environment, because when the sperm goes up the vaginal tract, the body considers it to be a foreign enemy and tries to kill it. Then it had to go upstream and defeat gravity. And third, it had to survive the test of competition. So in life, it's a competition. The problem with us, though, is because we like to compete with other people all the time and not do it in the right spirit. So the Holy Quran says it like this: and vie with one another in righteousness, and vie with one another for the forgiveness of Allah. So my goal is forgiveness of Allah. So what I'm doing to please the God, not trying to outshine you. I'm vying with one another I'm vying with you, and I'm in righteousness when I'm doing it. So I'm not doing it with envy and jealousy, which means that if you get a little ahead of me, I'm gonna try to pull you back. I'm vying in righteousness for the forgiveness of Allah. When we operate with that kind of competition, that's the 3 trials. Then in that competition, we really aren't competing with our fellow man. We're competing with our former self. We really aren't really trying to compete with our peers and trying to outdo our peers. We're trying to outdo our past. And when man operates trying to outdo his past, not peers, to do greater than his former self, instead of the fellow man, then you got righteous competition.
Yes, sir.
And you have to survive in a hostile environment.
Yes, sir.
You black in America, this is a hostile environment.
Yes, sir.
So that's warfare.
Yes, sir.
And then the other part is he said gravity. And gravity is an unseen force that holds you down. There's a lot of people, matter of fact, rewind it. All of us have unseen impediments that are holding us down. Somebody, it might be a drug. Somebody, it might be lust. Somebody else, it might be fear. Somebody else, it might be poor self-worth. Whatever it is, we got unseen forces that's holding us down. So in order for us to come into life, the sperm had to go through a hostile environment, defy gravity, and compete and win. Likewise, to become what we're supposed to become and to stay in existence, we're going to have to compete and win. We're going to have to survive a hostile environment, and we're going to have to overcome the invisible impediment we know that's holding us down. And if we do that, life won't necessarily be easy, but it'll definitely be worth it.
So it ain't gonna be easy still.
Yeah, it ain't gonna be easy, but it's gonna be worth it.
So in truth to that statement, in difficulty, after difficulty comes ease is the statement. Which makes me think about, when the devil times end up. And it was stated that there is a time where he expires. There's a year where he expires, and we happen to be in the grace. For a point of this thought I want to give to, can you give us a breakdown on when the devil times end and what was that year supposed to end?
The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that when you unpack the scriptures, that the devil or this race of people were given 6,000 years to rule. And their time was up in 1914. So they expired in 1914. Biblical scholars can go in and verify 1914 is the exact year of the end by going to break down the prophecies of Daniel. In the Bible, it says it a little different. It says that 6 days shall you work, O man, and on that seventh day you shall be put to rest. Most people like to make that to be God of the universe, but that really is not God that worked for the 6 days and will be put to rest. You can't put God to rest. That's the lesser God. And in 2 Peter 3:8, look what it says. A day unto the Lord is likened unto 1,000 years. So 6 days is 6,000 years. You will be put to rest in the 7,000th year. So 1914 was the expiration date of Satan's rule. I said, man, every time I buy food from the grocery store and it's in the refrigerator or in the pantry, first thing I do, if I hadn't had it in a minute, I got to look at the date.
Yeah.
See if is this milk expired?
Yes, sir.
And if it is expired, you know what we do? We throw it away.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because if you eat from what's expired, it can make you sick and might even kill you. So what's going on in the world right now? See, Satan's power is expired.
Yes, sir.
His educational system, his economic system, his political system, it's expired. But we're still eating from it. And by us eating from his system, his teaching, we are eating expired rule. And it's making us sick and killing us at a very early age. So 1914 was that time, but it says on the seventh day, he shall be. So that's within the 7,000 year. We in that time period of the 7,000 year. So any minute now, any minute, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he fasted and prayed to see the day that he would be completely eliminated from the face of the earth. So we don't know exactly where we are. I can say by studying in the book of Timothy, the 20 different spiritual diseases that would exist at the end of times. We are definitely there because every impediment that you see in there is manifest right now.
What are those spiritual diseases?
It's 20 different ones. It deals with men being lovers of themselves instead of God, vain desires. It has a long list, envious, jealous, a long list of these spiritual impediments. All of them
that
are present.
All playing out today.
Different world leaders doing different things. It's all present right now. So we might not even be in the last days. We might be in the last minutes. But we at the end of the rule. Our assignment, of course, we would love to be in the generation where we get to break the tape.
Yes, sir.
And go ahead and hold up that national like they do in track and field and go around there and point at everybody in the crowd. Freedom, justice, and equality is here. We won. It's over.
Yes, sir.
But the minister said this. He said the struggle for salvation of our people and liberation, it is a marathon relay. Long race for each individual, but you don't know what leg you're running. So I would like to think that we in the last leg and that we get to break the tape.
Yes, sir.
And another generation won't have to come up and deal with the same madness we had to deal with. They'll live in a world of a universal government of peace wherein we all can live in peace together. So that is the expiration date. So teaches the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Bible and the book of Daniel bears him witness. 1914, he expired. Stop eating from him. He making you sick.
And that's when he had world wars.
World War I, 1914. And so that's what he taught. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught a lot of concepts that were way before the time then and even now. And people are finally catching up with it. They don't give him the credit for it, as we talked about earlier. They don't give him the credit for it. Everybody online talking about the OMAD diet. That's an acronym for 1 meal a day. You got that from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The ADF, alternate day fasting, intermittent fast. You got it from the Honorable Elijah. This is how to eat to live that taught you this. Look at the whole vegetarian culture now that's taking a wave in our community. They got the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught this.
Yeah.
Fasting now is becoming, you can go on YouTube and find thousands of people, just common people from the hood, fasting to cure themselves of. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the one that said fasting is a greater cure for all of our ills, both physical and mental, than all the pills of this world put in one bottle or a billion bottles. So we too, just like in the How to Eat to Live, just like in the so-called UFOs, just like in the cracking of the atom, just like in the tuning in radio in the head, just like in the black man's, the original man, and everybody bears witness to that now. They too will also be forced to bear witness to that 1914.
Yes, sir.
That expiration date did come.
Are you clairvoyant?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I'm still in the same phase of accidentally on purpose.
Yes, sir.
Sneaking up on
comes
something
and goes.
every now and then.
Yes, sir.
But, I can say that certain cycles of time, whenever I am, for the lack of a better word, more on my deen and being more disciplined and being more tonic.
Yes, sir.
And almost no toxic, things seem to happen a lot easier and a lot faster. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said this, Brother Keys, and you've heard the average speed of thought, 24 billion miles per second.
Yes, sir.
Some faster, some slower. Average speed of thought. The greater, the more pure, the more right, the faster the thought. Slow thought, less positive.
Yes, sir.
He said that in the brain, there were 14 billion brain cells, and cells are shaped in a circular way. So imagine if you got a thought moving in circular motion around cells at 24 billion miles per second, it produces one or two forces.
Yes, sir.
Centrifugal or centripetal. Meaning centripetal means it spins and pulls something to it. Centrifugal means it spins and repels against it. Centripetal force is what you see with a tornado. It sucks stuff toward and breaks it up. Centrifugal is when an object that spins makes things push away from it, like the original Xbox or the original PS5 called the merry-go-round. They don't know about the merry-go-round. In the hood, in the park, they spin. They spin. You on that thing and you let Big T get on there and he starts spinning it.
Yeah.
You better hold on because you get thrown out. That's centrifugal.
Yeah.
The mind is so powerful that both laws come into effect. So the centrifugal force means that whatever we think the most, we begin to repel the opposite of. And whatever we think the most centripetal, we begin to attract people, situations, and circumstances to our life that match the nature of our thoughts.
Yes, sir.
So I don't think I am that, but I can say that I have noticed that the more tonic, the pure, the more on my square, the more on my deen, that things began to flow a lot easier. And you can think about something and it manifests itself. Think about what you'd like to see and it shows up the next day or the week after. So the power is there in us.
Yes,
we
sir.
just got to get ourselves clean enough to be able to access it and put it in a service at will.
Well, yeah, because I was reading in your book, you was talking about the study at Duke University with 100,000 participants who were able to, at a high percentage rate, guess the correct answer on the deck of cards, right? So I remember doing these tests with my younger brothers when I was young. I think I watched The Magician or something do it, and we'd think of a number. And it was almost, my younger brothers had to be like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And like, they had like a 90% rate where they was getting it each time.
No. Look how young they were though.
Yeah.
So
they were clean then.
Clean.
Yes.
So
they pretty clean.
They still doing good now?
They my twin little brothers. They probably the cleanest of all of us.
Wow. But I was thinking about when you said that, you remember Luther Vandross, I can't remember this, Dance with My Father.
Yes,
but he
sir.
said back when I was a little child, before life removed all the innocence. My father would pick me up, et cetera, et cetera. But see, as we get older, we get more and more corrupted, more and more dirty. And really, we start accepting more limitations.
Yes, sir.
Children think they can fly. I don't, all I need is a pillowcase, man. Tie that thing, a pillowcase on my neck, I'm coming off the top of the dresser.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, we have to be careful as parents, because sometimes in us protecting them, we accidentally give them too many limitations.
100%.
So we have to make sure we limit them for safe, and then tell them, look, I'm telling you this so you don't hurt yourself, because if you do this, that, and the other, this will happen. But don't follow that principle when it comes to any idea, dream, or vision, or thing you want to be in life. You can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
Can't is a cuss word.
Yeah.
It should be a cuss word in everybody's, and you got to watch your language around children.
That's a fact.
Don't even use the. We used to have in our school, the first day of school, Brother Keys, we would have a funeral for the word can't. Every student would make an image of can't, draw it all up, and we would go to the back. I'm talking about dig a real hole.
Yeah.
Everybody come in there, lay him to rest. We take the dirt, and then one of the students would be, you're going to eulogize.
Yeah.
And, normally eulogy tell you how good something is. This eulogy tell you how bad it is. So the young student would have to come and lay out all the things that'll mess you up if you start thinking that you don't have the ability to do something. And then they put him to rest. And then every now and then a student will be struggling and they might say, I can't do it. No. You do know what happened to Kate, right?
Yeah.
Where is Kate?
Yeah.
It's dead. Is it buried? It's dead, it's buried. So if Cain is buried, it doesn't exist anymore. So you're not allowed to use that no more. So you can do it. And by the grace of Allah, we was able to use that and keep everybody 3 or 4 grades above. But your little brothers, see, you all were young, clean. So you had that capacity. Sorry for interrupting you, but I just thought about that.
It's real. It's funny because I got to give my parents, my mother, father, a lot of credit because they never told me what I couldn't do.
Right.
I don't remember a time when somebody told me what I can't do. But I also have that type of energy where, if you tell me something I can't do, then it's going to make me believe I can do it. So it has the opposite effect. Right. That's just the way that I was raised, and that's just what I have in me. Matter of fact, I like when somebody tell me I can't do something now. Right. Because now I have that energy where I want to disprove you. I want to show you the God that I have inside of me. I want to show you that power. So that's always been such a real thing, but I know that gets destroyed in the average mind of the human being on this planet today, where you start thinking realistic, right? And when you start thinking realistic, you start thinking mediocre, right? And that mediocre does not lead to a path of greatness. It leads to the path of mundane. It leads to the path of failure, right? So you stop existing and that child existing with that like Delta's dream states, right? To where they have that ability to be in both worlds. They in that world where, they got an imaginary friend, right? In waking hours, right? So their mind hasn't been molded to say, okay, by age 30, they say who you are going to be is who you are. You start operating on automated responses that we call habits. But when you're young, before the age of 7, you're in that stage where anything you tell me, I'm going to believe, right? Because at this point, I believe everything is possible. So we start chopping these limitations in their creativity. So now they don't have that ability to think things from themselves and produce it out. They're limited on what they believe is possible. They have to be exposed and seen it again. Then they have to be inspired. They have to be motivated. All these things to try to get them to redigest that essence.
And deprogram.
So
that's something that, one of the things that I have been making as a general rule, no matter where I go to speak, I always ask, if I'm coming, can you get me in some schools? And so we've done in the last 2 years, probably 100 schools, free.
Yeah.
Speaking for free and I don't care how I'm going from, I've been in kindergarten.
Yes, sir.
All the way to high school, college too. But I always tell the young soldiers that unfortunately, that whatever age you are, you probably have already met some spirit killers, some dream snatchers, and some aspiration assassins. And sometime it was a teacher.
Yeah.
Sometime it was somebody from your hood. Sometime it was your friend. Sometimes it's your own mother and father. But I want to give you something that if you allow this to be a rule, law, or axiom that governs your mind, you'll be able to activate the override mechanism in your brain and put in check any self-defeating command that's ever been told to you. And that is this. I learned this from my teacher. There's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. So once you got your mind made up, because the blessing that you had is the blessing that those who they call it's an outlier mind. See, you didn't allow something that someone said you can't do make you sad and get defeated. You allowed it to make you mad and get you motivated. So I looked at Jay-Z when he was talking in one of his songs. He said that my teacher said I would either be dead or in a reefer head. Then he said, Miss Teacher, I wonder if you're near a speaker. Can you hear my sneakers? I'm balling out of control. Whatever, something like that. But point is, Pharrell said the same thing. Whenever Brother Malcolm was in 8th grade, teacher told him, after he asked, what do you want to be? He said he wanted to be a lawyer. He said, oh, Malcolm, your people wouldn't trust you enough. And you know, my people wouldn't hire you. Why not be a carpenter? The minister told him he wanted to be a doctor. Oh, Lewis, you play the violin beautifully. You know your people would never come to see you, and you know my people wouldn't come. Stick to that. Steve Harvey said when he was in the 6th grade, he wrote a paper, and look at, you remember the word you used, realistic?
Yes, sir.
He said it's what sends you to something that's mundane and mediocre. Watch this. Steve Harvey in the 6th grade said he wrote a paper in school on what he wanted to be in life. He said he wanted to be on television like Bill Cosby. Whenever he got to school, turned it in, the teacher called him to the front of the class. He thought his paper was so good, he was going to read it in front of the class. She gave him the paper and said to Steve Harvey in front of the whole class, Steve, what did you write your paper on? I want to be on television. She said, let me ask you a question. Do you know anyone on TV? No, ma'am. Do you have any family members on television? No, ma'am. She said, I want you to go home and tear that paper up and write me something, listen to this, more realistic. He went home to his mother, showed it to her. She said, this is what the teacher said. Mother said, well, yeah, that's what you need to do. Go write that paper. Steve Harvey still wasn't feeling good about it. Wait till his father came home. And when his father came home, she said, Dad, teacher told me to write something on what I wanted to be. I said I want to be on TV. She stood in front of the class, told me to tear it up, write something more realistic. I came and told Mom, she said, I need to write the paper. What do I need to do? What should I do? He said, let me see that paper. He said, I don't see nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
He said, I need you to go upstairs for a minute. I need to talk to your mother. I don't know what he said to his wife, but he didn't want the son to hear it. More than likely, he told her, don't you ever tell our children what we can't be. Anything he put in mind to. So Steve Harvey's father went up to his room and told him, he said, I tell you what, let's write a paper on being a police officer or something. You turn that in, but the paper you wrote, I want you to put it in the top drawer. And every day before you go to bed and every day before you leave your room, I want you to read it to yourself. Where is he at right now? He's on television.
Yeah, yes.
So the outlier allows the negative can't do to become motivation. But most people allow it to break their spirit.
Right.
Snatch their dream and assassinate their aspirations. And I'm saying to the viewing audience that you might be 40 years old. Go back in your mind and find that thing you said you really wanted to be when you were young. Because when we in the schools, Brother Keys, you go to the 3rd grade, what do you want to be? I want to be an engineer. I'll be a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
I want to be a doctor. You get it now. Your same students catch them at junior and high school. What do y'all want to be? This is the universal. No, nobody knows, but you did know. What happened? You got derailed. Your aspirations were assassinated. Your dreams were snatched. Somebody killed your spirit. So go back to that time when you was 4, 5, 6. What did you really want to be?
And we ask people what they want to be, but most people don't know who they are. Because if you know who you are, then it's easy to pinpoint, right? What do you want to do with who you are? Because that's going to be dependent, as you talked about, your gifts, skills, and your talents.
Right.
Because you say, wait a minute, you know, I'm tested. I'm a very great communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that lets me know I most likely can succeed at being a speaker.
Right.
So maybe I should get in communications, right? Because you now know your function, where you can function at highly. Now you say, well, function denotes purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, I use the example of a remote control. We know that the remote control function, right, is to turn the TV off. So that's its purpose.
Right.
So when you find a gift, skill, and talent, then you find correlated purposes with those things.
Yeah.
But because we have a world where you don't help a person identify who they are, right, on a customized level, now everybody is graded off these same measurements, right? To where say, wait a minute, I might have spatial intelligence. I might have kinesthetic intelligence, right? I might be better physically, but you telling me I should be a scientist. Or somebody that, you know, wants to be, you know, in front of the camera, because I look at it like this, is that a lot of times we have dreams and desires that's connected to our weaknesses. Because we have viewed somebody that has produced their dreams and desires because it was connected to their strength. So this is why I say we have so many people who may want to pursue a career in entertainment because you see somebody who is gifted at that. And you want what comes along with that gift, but you don't have that gift. So now you're pursuing something in your weakness. So we have all these people in these fields that are mediocre, that won't produce anything. But if they got behind the camera, maybe if they decided to be a writer, maybe if they would have did something that was their actual gift and their talent, then they would have been able to produce their desires. But we also have this hierarchy of careers and dreams. This one looks better because, you know, I like you saying, we in a time of vanity. So, man, well, this doesn't allow me to be vain, right? This doesn't allow me to be this. So you're going to destroy the purpose that God made you for, right? Because you're now comparing what someone else's gifts brings them. So this is something I try to get people to understand. It's like, think about, you know, the customization of self, who you are, right? There's so many different ways to study your personality types, your design types, the way you speak, your psychology type. You even talked about, before we spoke on camera, on, you know, you can match like the metronome rhythm of a person speaking to be like, you know, one person made Malcolm X jazz and you compared yourself to hip hop. What this does is now you know how to formulate, right? You know, around the rhythm of who you are. But other than that, you're just trying to figure it out. And this is what a coach does, right? I heard the Minister Louis Farrakhan say, and hopefully I'm not paraphrasing, but I think he said that your father is someone who elevates you. So sometimes it may not be your biological father, right? And we have a world that is underfathered, so there's a lot of people who are not elevated because they don't know how to seek a source for elevation. And so he was like, I am many people's father because I help give them that elevation. If you're going to jump into crown society, you're saying that I represent power, I represent knowledge of self.
Stepping in the name of drip, get ready with me. Stepping in the name of drip, get ready.
I wear the crown to just symbolize, like, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, I know my purpose.
It's abundance, it's royalty, it's prosperity, it's energy.
Put in. Yeah. I gotta walk with my head held high because you gotta see this and you gotta see this.
I believe that if anybody wants to be able to protect their mind and be able to think freely, you gotta get Crown Society today, man.
Neo after the blue pill, the color palette's all black. James Bond mixed with Malcolm X in my Che Guevara era.
Before you came into the Nation of Islam, before you became a student minister, before you got as sharp as you are today.
Striving.
Yes, sir.
Striving.
You know, all praise is due to Allah, but you are a beacon of light that many people look up to. You are a point of elevation that many people can say, man, if I study, you know, the example of the good brother Nuri Muhammad, then perhaps I can take on some of the disciplines that he has to transform into who he is today. So the question is, who were you before you became who you are today?
Wow. Well, as you said, all praise, not some, not most, but all
Yes, sir.
praise belongs to Allah. That study where we're talking about the rhythm of speech.
Yes, sir.
It was a music professor in Pittsburgh, I believe, Pittsburgh. He had told me that they had taken Malcolm X's speeches and he spoke to the rhythm of jazz. And they said, well, we took your speeches and you speak to the rhythm of hip hop.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to prove it, but that's what he said. I guess it has something to do with cadence, etc.
Yeah.
But that's what his assessment was. To your point about the doing what you're born to do and knowing who you are so you can know what to do. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad says in his illuminating book, Message to the Black Man, that if you train a child properly, feeding their mind and their body properly, by the time they reach the age 6, they'll already know what they're born in the world to do. That means they will have their purpose. The minister said this about purpose. He said, I was looking up the definition one day of happiness. He said, no, not in the dictionary, but I consulted myself. And I remember sitting on the stage, Brother Keys, I word his bond, I was sitting back 2 rows behind him, and it was at a educational paradigm lecture. And I didn't say it out loud, but you know what I thought? Yeah, who in the hell is Webster anyway? Word his bond. I was like, I want to hear your definition.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have the divine definition from the man
sir.
of God than Webster. I don't know nothing about Webster. So he said, I consulted myself and I found that happiness comes when you have found your purpose for living and you are fulfilling that purpose. That soul has an unspeakable joy. And all he's telling us is that real happiness doesn't come from filling full your pocket. It comes from fulfilling your purpose.
Yes, sir.
Too many people, Brother Keys, do what they're paid for, not what they're made for.
Come on, you gotta say that one again.
Too many people do what they are paid for, not what they are made for. And you'll never have fulfillment until what you do for a living is not just what you do, but who you are.
Yes, sir.
That's where you get mental satisfaction from. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this. Of course, most of us can say I wasn't trained and fed properly from the time I was in the womb to 6. So how do I get my purpose? He said this: what you love to do and what you do best is more than likely what you're born to do.
Yes, sir.
See, that single activity of life that you do well with the least amount of effort, that's how you find it. You say, but I can't, I don't know what it is. There's a verse in the Colossians that says this, that everything got started in God and finds its purpose in God. So cleaning up, as we've been talking about, that gets you to a point where you are able to get some of the dross off of your receiver of your mind, and then the God can help you show you what you're born to do and what's best. And you start fulfilling that purpose, that's where joy is going to come from. So I, as a young person, I lived in a neighborhood. I remember that the Ghetto Boys had a song that said the world is a ghetto. But for most of us, the ghetto is our world. Because that's all you know is that little environment. And you pretty much, whatever they say goes, whatever they wear, whatever they applaud, that's what I'm going to do. Whatever they look down on, that's what I'm staying away from. So in my community, neighborhood I lived in, everybody sold dope. I mean, it was on the level of New Jack City without apartment building. On every corner. I'm talking about 5 blocks of corners, both sides of the street, 5 to 6 people on both corners, on both sides of the streets, everybody getting money. I never was on a corner, but my partners were. But we were selling, as a teenager, a ½ ounce of powder cocaine a day, an ounce on the weekends. So we was doing pretty good. But I noticed that as I was killing my people, I felt myself dying on the inside.
Yes, sir.
And I told my partners, I said, I don't like this. I don't like the way this feels. I'm starting to lose love for what I'm supposed to love. I don't like this. And he's like, what? You tripping? It'll be all right. Look, it'll go away. And it probably would. I said, I don't know. I'm not feeling this. So I was sitting on the porch one day, Brother Keys, and a thought came to my mind. I wonder what the dope fiends were doing when they was my age. So instead of going to serve anybody, just took a tour of the hood, went to the trap, the alley, the liquor store, and all I did was interview the people we were selling dope to. And I asked them, I said, what was y'all doing whenever y'all was my age? They said, oh, we just getting money just like you. I said, getting money, what do you mean getting money just like me? You talking about cutting grass or painting houses? What you mean getting money just like me? No, we was hustling. I said, so y'all used to sell dope and now y'all own dope? Yeah. I said, man, if I'm doing what they doing whenever they were my age, I'm en route to be doing what they're doing when I become their age. I got to renegotiate my contract. So I started going to church, trying to get out. But anybody that's ever been in the streets knows it's just as hard to stop selling as it is to stop using.
Yes, sir.
That's why I think they said, they called it crack rock, because they're getting two black people with one stone. Not two birds, but two black people. One that got a fiend for the dope, the other got a fiend for the money. So I was still feeling the pull and going to all the services. And a sister that I knew that I was talking to, that was my girlfriend from junior high, she gave me a message to the black man and 2 tapes of the minister. I had them. I never read them or listened to them. And then all of a sudden she started reading them and studying, and all she wanted to talk about was that. It's like, man, I can't keep on being on the phone sounding dumb. I got to learn. And I picked up that message to the black man. I said, this is how I've been believing all my life. I just didn't know how to say it. Then I looked at the brothers. I said, oh, no, it looks a little too disciplined for me. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I made a contract with myself. I said, well, if you can prove it wrong, you'll leave it alone. But if you can't, you give your whole self to it. And I studied the teachings and then the counter ideas from all different science and religion I could find 8 to 10 hours a day as a teenager. I would bring a whole argument to the brother on search posts.
Yeah.
Not nobody teaching. He just searching. And I would say, brother, I'm telling you, I read this, that, and that. It kind of makes this don't match up with what the message of the black man said. Oh, brother, that's because of so forth and so forth. I said, you mean to tell me that I didn't been put in 8 hours and you defeated my argument in 8 minutes?
Yeah.
And so I submitted and said, you know what? It's the truth. I know it's the truth because I tried to prove it to be other than that. And I'm here for life.
Yes, sir.
And that helped my conviction. And I never had read a book, Brother Keys. In my life. The only book I ever read in my life was the autobiography of Magic Johnson, and it was the little thin one.
Yeah.
I just did the same report, and my vocabulary got bigger, so the report got longer, but I never read it again.
Yeah. How old were you?
At that time, I was 16 years old. But I had never read nothing since the 3rd grade, not a book in no shape, form, or fashion. But school was what it was. It wasn't hard.
Right.
I still could get through. But end result was I was reading that message to the black man, and I used to see an image on the wall of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and a white man. And they would be smiling at me when I read and studied a lot. But if I didn't, I would see the same image and they would be frowning, and I would just keep studying. I finally made it to the mosque and went in there and seen a picture of Rastafari Muhammad. I said, that is the image of the man I've been seeing on my wall. Never had seen him before or a picture of him, but I had seen him on the wall. So those kind of things, the natural and those supernatural, gave me great conviction. But that's my little story. That's how I was walked into this. My girlfriend at the time introduced me to teachings. I got registered at 17. 2 weeks later, she got registered. A year and a half after that, we got married. And God willing, in July of this year, we'll be celebrating 30 years.
Congratulations, brother. All
Yes,
praise
sir.
is due to Allah. Which brings me to a magnificent question. How does one find the right one and keep them?
That's a very deep question. It seems to be complicated, but it's not as complicated as it is. There's a verse in the Holy Quran that pretty much says that God is a matchmaker. It's found in the 24th chapter of the Quran, the 32nd verse, and it tells us how to find a mate. It says, marry those among you and those who are fit for you. So there's two things you're looking for. You're looking for somebody that has the same faith you have, but also has to be your flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Too many times we get one or the other. Somebody that got my faith, but they not my flavor. Or somebody that got my flavor, but they don't have my faith. And if you do, you're going to be unequally yoked. You'll be attached to something, a person and something else, and they'll be going the opposite direction, and they won't help you, they'll hurt you. So in it, it goes on to say, and if you cannot find that mate, keep chase until Allah blesses you out of his grace with a spouse. That's the matchmaker part. So the suggestion is really focus on being the kind of mate that matches your definition of the ideal woman for you as a man, or the ideal man for you as a woman. You got your picture. What does the ideal man look like to you, sister? Okay. What would his wife look like? What would be her characteristics and qualities if she's going to be a match and a mate for? What would be that match? Work on being that, and you'll find that if you work on being that by the magnetic power of the electrochemical energy of your mind, match with God himself, being a matchmaker, he'll bless you with that spouse and vice versa. So you don't have to put in the energy to chase him down. You really just have to put in your energy to become the one that's supposed to be with that one.
Yeah.
And he's going to give you that one.
You know, in today's time, the generations to come and the generation now, and maybe in generation before us, really don't believe in marriage anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I like to flip the stat on people where they say 50% of marriages don't work out, but they're not telling, well, 50% of marriages do work out.
Right.
But we always focus on the bad side because it validates, right, our resistance that we have towards the institution of marriage in the first place. What would be your counseling to the generation that is so apprehensive, right, to marriage?
Yeah.
And part of it is because we live in such a chaotic world, right, to where there's an insecurity, right, of finding this real thing, this right thing. Right. There's all these, so-called gender wars and complaints and conversations that muddy up a person's clean thinking towards it.
Right.
So it's no longer the animated series that we have towards, marriage or fairy tale endings.
Right.
Now it's the podcast of the feuds and the issues and problems and the divorce lawyers and the settlements and all of that that's in the mind that says, man, I ain't doing that.
Yeah. And that's the goal of the enemy. See, remember, if we look back, brothers and sisters, there's always been an attack on the black family. When they first came and kidnapped us from Africa, when we first got on the slave ships, the ceiling of the slave ships that they stacked us in was only 8 inches tall. We were shoulder to shoulder with an 8-inch ceiling laying on our backs on a 9,000-mile journey that would take 3 months. They did not feed us with food with a plate. They put slop through the cracks of the floor and water through the cracks of the floor, and we had to lean over and get it. But what they did that was so treacherous, you had husbands, wives here, and their children way down there. They couldn't get to their children, so they would hear their babies taking their last cry. That's an attack on the family. We get to America because they couldn't break us the first batch. They killed off all the adults, spared the young. Another attack on the family. The young grow up. Guess what they are told? It's illegal to marry each other. No, you don't marry and become no husband and father. You don't marry, become a wife and a mother. You will become a slave producer and you will become my stud. So they took a man from one plantation, a woman from another, put them in a horse stable, made them mate with each other. That's an attack on the black family. So the enemy has always knew that the real power base of the original people has always been our family life. The minister said like this, where there's no strong marriages, you can't have a strong family. Where there's no strong families, you can't have a strong community. And where there's no strong community, you can't have a strong nation of people. Marriage then becomes the cornerstone of all nation building. Look on the pyramid Giza. the last living wonder of the world. It's 451 feet tall, goes down into the earth 451 feet deep, covers 13 and a half acres of land, made of 1 million stones of gold, marble, and granite, each stone stacked mathematically precise, north to south, up in the air, down in the earth, east to west, not even deviate 1 square inch, because they had the mathematics of the mind. That's what they had. They had the mathematics, and they used telepathy. It wasn't no bulldozer, it wasn't no John Deere, it wasn't no crane. It was the mind that put them stones in place like that. But on those walls, you'll go in there and you'll see Osiris, and next to him, it looked like somebody been scratching whatever used to be there. You'll see the male Alafun scrapings next to him. You see the male Asa, bunch of scrapings next to him. Guess who used to be? Osiris. Isis used to be with Osiris. That was his wife. Alafun used to have Illidah, his queen, right next to him. And then Osai used to have Aset. They scraped the image off because they knew that if we ever looked in there, we would see, oh man, every great one we had that we called a god had a queen with him. So now you look at Willie Lynch, 1712. This is after slavery. We still in slavery, but this is after 1555, after the big collapse and destroying the old and sparing the young. He says we put the male against the female, and we put the female into an independent, frozen psychological state by never allowing her to have a man that will provide and protect her. So that becomes the foundation for why the media acronym, most effective devil in America. That's the reason why they want to make sure that we stay divided as families, because they know our power base is there. So on the other side of it, sometimes the worst advertisement for the institution of marriage is married people. Married people look like they're bored and look like they ain't having no fun. You go to a restaurant, just do your own sign.
That's a fact. They try to make it seem like it's miserable.
Do your own observation. Go to a restaurant and see a couple laughing and having fun, and go over there. Excuse me, are you all married? No, we're not married. You go to another couple. You see them on their phone eating.
Yeah.
Excuse me, are you all married? 27 years. 27 years. Yes. Why you ask? Hell, because you're miserable as hell.
Yeah.
It should be opposite.
Right.
The married couple should be the one that look like they're having the fun.
Right.
And the other couple should be look like they investigating each other, trying to figure out if this is the one.
Right.
But it's opposite. So the married couples have to start putting on a better advertisement for the institution of marriage to influence our people. I say it like this: if you're married and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
You're supposed to be having fun. Y'all supposed to be friends with each other, enjoying each other's company. This is your primary positive soundboard that you call your wife or your husband, that you bounce your ideas off of, and they give you back your ideas better than you gave it to you, and then help you to achieve the ideas. Why shouldn't you be happy with that kind of person? So the enemy did it, and now the couples are putting on a bad commercial. Multiply that by the gender war that wasn't started by a brother on YouTube and a sister over here in her little podcast. It was started by Willie Lynch in 1712, and we just happen to be the host of that devil that's keeping it alive. But if we want to be made strong, I'm telling you, we got to get our marriages back strong. We will not get the hood right if we don't get the home right.
First of all, I love that the commercial aspect. Marketing is powerful.
Yes,
it's very powerful. And this is why I say sometimes, it's not God that's lazy, it's the gods that's lazy, right? Meaning his sons are sometimes lazy. So that's why, when I think about marriage, most of it is the picture that you have in your mind of it, right? Like when you watch movies, it's the old miserable couple. Why is they always arguing? Why they always got a problem? Why did it make it seem like you get 20, 30 years in and the smallest thing will trigger you to have an issue for 3 months, right? Without actually communicating with each other to absolve the issue or resolve it rather. So it's like, I also want to understand marriage in the sense that this generations or generations to come are looking at it to where they do not want to have the traditional marriage in the sense of we go to the government, we get a piece of paper, right? And we have them officiate our marriage, right? It's now a belief that, listen, we can just have this contract with each other, right? That officiates this union between us. And this is, maybe they set up a trust, or maybe they set up something that's a contract between the two. Does that make the marriage still valid? Or do they have to go through the traditional union with the government as well in the contract process?
The minister advised us to legally say who you are, declare that you are what you are. You know, it's something that we are willing to get a license to drive a car, a license to carry even a pistol, but we won't get a license to get married. Don't mean you let them officiate it. You just get your license from them so that you can be legally considered a couple together. That's the way that he trained us to do it. So in that sense, I understand the rebelliousness against tradition, but the root of the rebelliousness against the tradition, it has nothing to do with licensings and white man laws, all that piece of paper. That's all this is, a piece of paper. Because we doing piece of papers and license and following all kind of laws for other stuff. It has something to do with us figuring out if we can do something different to produce a different outcome than the breakups that we're used to.
Yes.
Because while there's a 50% divorce rate of Americans, 75% divorce rate among Black people. That means for every 4 couples you see, 3 of them's not going to make it. And that is rooted in us not being taught the science of mating.
Yes, sir.
As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad showed us from the Congressional Library in D.C., that they met in 1867 in the halls of Congress to discuss whether they were going to let Black people go to college. And they said, yes, y'all can go, but you can't come to white schools. And there's 3 things that must never be taught to the slaves: the science of warfare, the science of finance, and the science of mating. And you look at our problems. We got dollars, but we ain't got no sense. We blame the white man for 95% of our problems, still spend 97% of our money with them.
Right.
We go broke trying to look rich. You know, we the leaders in unnecessary spending, buying what we don't need with money that we don't have from people that we don't like to impress people that we don't even know. And you know we don't know the science of warfare because we've never turned on any of the enemies that killed us.
Right.
We only killed each other in friendly fire all the time, consistently. So mating is choosing a mate and then raising the product of the mate, which is parenting. That's the 2 sides. We haven't been taught that, and we haven't major problems. So I submit to us, sisters and brothers, that we have to start investing more energy into the marriage and less into the wedding. Black people do a good job studying up and getting prepared for the wedding.
Yes, a lot of planning.
A lot of planning and a lot of money. We reading all kind of stuff. We going on Pinterest. We interviewing people. We got a coordinator for this. We you know, you ain't ate nothing but an apple and 2 crackers for 3 months so you can fit in your dress.
Yeah.
All that preparation and study for a 30-minute event. Well, why ain't you reading to learn for a lifetime event called a marriage? It seems like that should be the one that gets the most study. So I'm saying, love alone will not keep you together. You're going to have knowledge of the nature of a woman as a man so that you can fulfill her natural God-given needs. And you're going to have know the nature of a man so that you can fulfill his God-given needs. And when you got knowledge and love and friendship and fun, that's the happily ever after. That's the fairy tale. That's the cartoon. It's back again.
Yeah.
Whenever you can do it like that, we just got to get there.
What has been, because 30 years is a long time, right? By any estimation.
Yes,
right?
sir.
A very successful long time.
Yes, sir.
But what has been your greatest, I would say, challenge or lesson, right, that you had to learn as a man through this time that you've been married?
Well, in the beginning, being a father, being a husband, you're the leader of your home.
Mm-hmm.
So all I knew about leadership was mosque leadership. So I'm the captain, the minister.
Yeah.
You my first officer, squad leader, and y'all the private soldiers. So I was militating at the house. Everything was a detail. Quick thinking, fast moving. Come on, what, shut the door. So you operating like you in a war, and all y'all doing is going to the grocery store. So I was militating, Brother Keith, and my wife told me, she cried, she told me, you got to stop this. This is messing us up bad. You're messing us up.
Yeah.
I am not, this is not FOI class. I said, you're right. So all I knew about leadership was I seen in the military side of the mosque, FOI training.
Yes, sir.
So I'm at the house trying to turn the house into the military operation.
Yeah.
So I snapped out of it quick. And from there, we was able to get along really good. We were blessed though, because we've been together since we was 14.
Yeah, okay.
So, and we got married when we were 19. So we had the fortunate privilege to build the longevity ingredient that they found to be the longevity ingredient of successful relationship. And that is this. In 2012, they went around the world interviewing couples that were happily married for over 65 years to find out what was common. And the most common trait was they were friends with each other. So friendship is the longevity ingredient. So by the fact that we developed our friendship, came into the nation, and now we have purpose for living, duty to the God, and now we're getting the knowledge on how to be a husband, how to be a wife, how to be a father and a mother. Mix all of that up together, it produces the bond that Allah blessed us with. And I can say this, that even though we're getting ready to walk up on 30 years, inshallah, God willing, I still feel just as excited as I felt the first 30 minutes that I met her. Just the honest truth. So it's we don't argue. Period. We don't argue about nothing. We don't have, and my wife has never complained, Brother Keys. She navigated through poverty with me because I wanted to be true to this craft of resurrection of the dead. And she was the same when we had nothing as she is now that we have something. Never changed. So, I was blessed.
Right.
To have that kind of mate that loved what I did for the cause and for our people more than she loved what I did for her.
How do you go 30 years without arguing?
Well, no, not 30 years without arguing, but we don't argue now.
Okay, yes.
We had a few, but it never, I can say this, that we had disagreements.
Yes, sir.
And there's a difference. Argument is when two people go back and forth to find out who is right. Disagreement is when you go back and forth in a calm, respectful manner to figure out what is right.
Right.
So we tried to always follow the proper way of handling people and to treat others the way we wanted to be treated and let that rule live in our house. So we tried to treat our children with honor and respect like we wanted to be treated and treat each other. So that became our little code. So we never really got hostile like that. We had disagreements, but we talked it out, and whatever truth won.
Yes, sir.
I took some L's.
Yes, sir.
I'm the man. No, the truth rule. If truth is truth, you're right. You're right. And that's another thing, whenever you have two people that don't respect the same higher mind, it's going to be hard to get along, because you might say, man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this, that, and the other. And they might say, well, my reverend said so forth.
Yeah.
Like, you compare your reverend to
right.
Come on now.
Right.
It's not
now you're having thought wars. You got two ideas going at each other.
That's unequally yoked, and I'm getting disconnected. Because it's gonna be rough. How we not gonna make it? We're not gonna So you gotta have two same sources of ideas that you both respect.
Yeah.
If you believe in the Bible, you believe in the Quran, you believe in God, truth, if that's what you agree to, then whenever y'all have a disagreement, okay, there's a verse in the Bible that says it like this, Brother Keys. bring every thought captive unto Christ. So now my job is I can't take my thoughts and say, here, Jesus, look at this. But to take what I'm thinking or what we're arguing or disagreeing about, let's take it to the God.
Yeah.
What did he say on the subject?
Yeah, run it through the funnel.
He said so forth and so forth. So I'm a little right, you're a little right. I'm a little wrong, you're a little wrong. This is how we're going to start doing it. All right, you agree? Hands in the huddle, ready, break, we go. So that's kind of the blessing. And I think too that Allah wanted us to be in a position where we could take on other people's problems. So he did not allow us to be bothered and bogged down with our own. Because how can you fight a war out there if you got a civil war going on at home? I always tell the sisters, I say, look, the last thing that a black man wants to come home to after fighting in this world is to have to go round two with his own woman. And the last thing, brothers, that a woman wants to come home to after fighting in this world is to come home to a man that ain't been fighting at all. So when you got two people fighting in that world, you all have to be in alliance with each other. The home should be your spiritual recharge center. When you unplug from the world, come to a place of pure love and extract from the environment peace and power. When marriage is done right, that's what you have.
That's powerful. See, I know that, they say a large percentage of marriages end, a lot of them because of finances.
Yeah.
We have what they call poverty-induced stress disorder. So when you grow up in impoverished environments, there's an increased chance that you're going to be stressed out, you're going to be depressed, right? And that actually culminates other illnesses, and it creates a cycle because now you can't pay for health care, right? So it just becomes deepened and worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And if you add that to a union, right? Now you have these problems. Y'all not dealing with being friends, right? She can't get the small things that she wants. She can't get her nails done and you can't pay for them, right? So now you don't feel like a man because you can't provide. So now you start to add all this extra machismo in these other areas, right? To try to make up for that lack of willfulness that you have to do for her and for self.
Right.
So this is where you find these imbalances, and when you have imbalances, it becomes toxic, right? So I think it gets me back to that word clean, where trying to create that clean relationship is finding that harmony and that balance of, the necessities, the needs, the wants, the desires, right? The truth, that highness that has to be in it between you all. Because I definitely don't believe it can work unless you got the same God. It can't, because those two gods are going to be competing in that relationship, guiding you all to headbutt at different points in time. And communication, to me, is the most important thing.
That's the ministers.
Yeah.
90%.
But how do you get to that? Because you are a great communicator.
Oh, praise be.
So I know that there is if I will word it as the temptation to win the argument of logic when should be understanding the moment of emotion. Right? So how does a man, especially one that has that analytical, logical brain, I know I can win, right? But in dealing with your woman, it's not always about winning. It's about feeling. It's about understanding. So I grew up in that militant environment. My pops, my older brother, everything was cut corners, super militant. I lived by that. Then I had to learn, because honestly, my pops and brother didn't teach me that. So I had to learn that part on my own. Right? Like, there's really a feminine side to brothers. I didn't know that. I thought that was just something that was making up this propaganda. I had to really understand that. And especially as you deal with a woman, you understand, like, if you get your woman to think logical, she gonna use that logic on you. You want your woman to be in that flow, right? Because then you have that opposites.
It's the ego has to be removed from the equation to communicate properly. You can't look down and talk down to someone all the time and properly communicate with them anytime. You have to see them as someone that is on your level with you.
Yes, sir.
And therefore you respect them. So if a man has a position where he's thinking his woman is down there and his children is down there, he's always looking down and talking down to them. He never communicates with respect.
Yes, sir.
So when the ego gets removed, and see, when the ego is present, what happens is you desire to win the point and don't care about losing a person. But when the ego is gone, your goal is to figure out, how can I keep the person and also make my point?
Yes, sir.
And that's the math. So communication, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said 90% of the problems are coming from poor communication. Communication is 4 things: transmitter, channel, receiver, feedback. So a transmitter has to communicate through a channel to a receiver, and then the receiver gives it feedback to let it know that it properly communicated. If people aren't on the same channel, how are you going to transmit to the receiver? And since, even if you transmit a message to the receiver and they give you feedback that's opposite of what you're trying to say, that's not saying something wrong with them. It's saying something wrong with the way you said it.
Yes,
so
sir.
I got to figure out how do I reword what I'm saying so that it can register with you properly, that I can get from you the right and appropriate feedback. And that's a 2 again. That's ego. Got to be out the equation. So once you do that and you come with respect to each other, then you do it. The goal of the devil, if you take the Bible and Holy Quran, peel back all of the strategies of the devil, it can be summed up in this simple statement: he wants to turn you upside down and inside out. So make a man a woman. Make a woman a man. Make her the provider by giving her the job and more money, and make you the support system, making you opposite of the nature in which you were created. So there's gender-specific commands that's already been laid out in the scripture on what a man's supposed to be doing and a woman should be doing as a basic job description. Maintain, protect, provide. That's a man's job. Woman's job: help, meet, comfort, and console. There's many more nuances to that. Other smaller things you can do in that supporting system.
Yes, sir.
But whenever that man is out of his nature, that's when you see it. He starts going out trying to figure out other things he can do to validate himself as a man.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of times that ends up being messing with some other woman down the street or doing something else inappropriate with drugs or something else, just so he can feel some sense of achievement and conquering something. So that's the way of the enemy. He set up the social economic system to turn us upside down and inside out. And we got to be on guard against it. And I think that if the brothers and the sisters that are in that home understand that the division of the household is not a product of nature, it's a product of a world that's designed to make him less than you and make you more than him, so that the proper structure will never be in that home and the family will never be what it can be, so the community and the nation will never be. Then once you go into that, you start being more understanding.
Yes, sir.
Of each other. And I don't want to say you grade each other on a curve. You understand. Don't mean you make an excuse, but you understand.
Yes, sir.
And because of that, you're not as harsh in your judgment or your criticism of the one you with, because you know who's behind pulling the strings, making the world the way it is, that my man ain't what he could be.
Yes, sir.
Instead of saying that one over there can do it and he can do it, why come you can't do it? No, he's fighting the whole world that's diametrically opposed to him as a black man in specific, being what he's supposed to be. And I think that understanding that plot of the enemy will produce a little more peace in the home.
You know, you haven't made any excuses as a black man with the opposition, right? You've been able to create success for yourself, both spiritually, mentally, physically, and financially. Does the black man have excuses in today's time to not build himself up and be successful in all those areas? Or can the age-old tale of the white man continue to be our blockade to our heaven.
Right. Well, it can't be, but you got to know who your enemy is and his strategies, tactics, and maneuvers he uses to employ on you. And then you got to be, like you said, you got to be one of them kind of outlier brothers that don't let the can't or the world or the system allow. See, whenever I learned the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth. Look, God of the universe.
Yes, sir.
I said, oh man, if I'm the God of the universe, I'm taking this personal. That's my potential. I ain't quite there yet, but I know before I can be the God of the universe, I got to be the God of a planet.
Yeah.
Before I can be the God of a planet, I got to be the God of a continent.
Yeah.
And before I can be the God of a continent, I got to be the God of a country, state, city. Before I can be the God of a city, I got to be the God of a hood. And before I can be the God of a hood, I got to be the God of my house. And even before I become the God of my house, I got to become the God of myself.
Yes, sir.
So I got to establish freedom, justice, equality, harmony, and balance with force and power in me. So by doing so, I took the teachings like that. And I'm saying that to those that are watching this, if you accept that you are born and created in the image and the likeness of God, that means that everything that's true about God is true about you. Image means that you are in the form of God. Likeness means, the minister said this, that you have his thought, his mind, his character, and his spirit in you. So when God looks at you, he sees himself. Question, when you look at yourself, do you see God? And if you say yes, then what can't God do? So you meet and overcome all obstacles. A God, when you are a God, you're not a creature of circumstance, you're a creator of circumstance. When you when you know you're a God, you're not the thermometer, you're the thermostat. You don't take temperature, you set to. When you are a God, you don't wait to do good after you feel good. You do good and make yourself good. When you a God, you don't wait on the spirit to move you, you move the spirit. That's the way you should. So I got it from the teachings. That's what gives us that kind of fight, drive, and focus to meet and overcome the obstacles in our path, because we know who our enemy is and his strategy, tactics, and maneuvers, and we meet and overcome, and we make no excuses. The minister said this: excuses are equivalent to sin.
Yes, sir.
And the wages of sin is death. So if I'm making an excuse, I'm killing myself. So I can't do that.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to do that. So I think that, for any of us, once you know that you are more than a conqueror and that God destroyed impossibility when he brought himself into existence, then the impossible doesn't exist no more. You can do anything you put your mind to. You just gotta push forward, follow the system as long as you need to, and your be will become an and it, and then the and it will be your is.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Brother Nuri, how you want to be remembered when you gone? I know all praises due to Allah. I know that, you do the work, not for yourself, right? But you do the work. Number one, a Muslim is to submit his or her will to do the will of God. And you are a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and a student follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
As a man, every man must think about his legacy, right? Yeah. And you are building, I would say, a very great legacy. Not only because of your physical work, but you have created extensions of that work to live and be immortalized through your literature, right? And through the books that you've written. And so there are not that many, I believe, interesting people on the planet Earth. Because most people don't tap into that ether of the universe to be able to culminate that God mind and to use even a small fraction of it to change the atmosphere and conditions on the planet Earth. But you happen to be a force on the planet Earth. So I wonder, do you think about how Brother Nuri Muhammad will be remembered when he is spoken about 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now?
I really don't, believe it or not. I don't even think about it. And I was joking with myself the other day. I said, you know what? I don't give a damn if I have a nameless grave. Bury me. Whatever I did, let it be what it is and let it have an impact. But I don't even have to have I don't have to have my name on my grave. And that was just me joking with myself.
Right, yeah.
But, of course, on a tombstone, and on an obituary. Most people, when they see a tombstone or an obituary, the first thing their mind gravitates to is the date that somebody was born and the date that somebody dies.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the most important part of the tombstone or the obituary. It's a little dash in between. That little dash represents their life that they lived. And I've learned this by doing enough services that I've never seen a U-Haul attached to no hearse, dragging all their stuff. When somebody dies, their house didn't get buried with them, their cars. Well, I can't say that because black people crazy.
Black people be wild. I seen a brother with some statue and gold.
I seen a man get buried in the whole car.
Yeah.
But for the most part, for the most
the
part,
outliers.
yeah, he's the outlier in the wrong outline. For the most part,
well, you know what, Angel? To go back to Tutankhamun, the 19-year-old brother, man, he got buried in all his gold and all his jewelry. He had a whole tomb full of room, all his stuff. He said, "I ain't sharing nothing."
And put it in the service for somebody else, man. Make some parts or something. But so the material things are really nothing at the end of the day. And even whenever I did a service for a very, very wealthy brother a few months ago, very wealthy. And he asked me to do his brother asked me to do his eulogy. I didn't read nothing about his possessions. Nobody remembered him and loved him because of what he had. They loved and remembered him because of who he was.
Yes, sir.
And how he made them feel. So I pray to Allah that I could be a good tool, weapon, and instrument in the hand of the Messiah to help him to build a better world. And I don't really care about the legacy side, or I can tell you I could be in the nameless grave. I already told everybody, don't buy no caskets and stuff. When I'm gone, get a card, get a box. Y'all can wrap it with some Islamic something, make it look pretty. And I don't even want a service in a building. Come to the grave site, say a prayer. Don't open it. Don't look at me, put me down in the ground and move on. And think about whatever you loved about your father or your brother and what you learned from him and keep it going. So that's all I think about, brother.
I hear that and I think about our immaterial possessions is what is remembered.
Yes, sir.
There are a lot of devils that are remembered.
Yeah.
Because good and great aren't synonymous. Right? You can be great and be remembered for thousands of years. Right. Doesn't mean you had any moral fiber in your body. Right? You had no goodness.
Right.
But those examples then become stories.
Yes, sir.
And they become archetypes for people to want to mimic because people want to be remembered. So I think about when great men that are good are remembered, it now conquers as stories that we can possess to where now I can see myself in you. Right. Because it may be somebody who need that story of Nuri Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
Because you know, like I know, that you can have the same teaching as another brother, but that doesn't mean you can relate to the people the same way he can, because he may have a perspective, he may just have an energy, they just may relate to the spirit that he comes from when he speaks. So that person happened to resonate with that, and they finally was able to grasp the information, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to transform themselves. So I think about it in that sense that a legend is an energy that never dies, meaning that if you do good work, it has to reverberate beyond your body because we are not our physical body. So death to me is, of course, not finality, not when you do good works.
Yes, sir. That's
right.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it's not to say, hey, you know, I'm the most important man in the world, but it's saying that if there are good deeds to be remembered, remember them. If there are good lessons to be remembered, remember them. If there's work that I've done, I want that to be remembered. So the work that I'm doing, because let's say if you disappeared and somebody didn't know you was gone and they listened to your lectures, to them, you're alive. Right. To them, you're teaching them. To them, you're elevating them. So you don't have to physically be here to be doing work. So I think about legacy in that manner to where you're always working.
Yes, sir. And I would say that would be it. You know what they consider in the world to be intellectual property. is the only thing that has the ability to transcend space and time.
Yes, sir.
And your physical being present. And I would hope that, as you said, there has been thousands of people that have benefited, and I would hope that
hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions. My brother is very
thank you, sir.
Very humble.
So I would hope that it would keep expanding, and then those that got what they got, I always tell people, I don't want you to be my student.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to pull up your desk next to mine and learn from my teacher.
Yes, sir.
Because I got what I got, and you can get from me what you got from me, and you can get more from him. Mix it all together with what you have in you, and let's take it to another level. So that's the spirit, but I don't really think about it really, but I do. Of course, you give your life to something, and you want that what you gave your life to live, and it will.
Yes,
and
sir.
you hope that whatever you did is a significant contribution to it.
Yes, sir.
Because that's why you did it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, Brother Keith.
Well, a master teacher, right, is always going to produce master students.
Sir.
So all of your accomplishments are still, right, from the direct lineage of your teacher.
Yes,
so
sir.
Anything you do is from the fruit.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So you say you judge a tree by the fruit it bears.
Right.
So if there's not no good fruit out there, then the tree is now being judged. So it's like, it's the responsibility to be great.
Good teacher.
So that you can show, I got a great teacher, because how can you prove?
Right.
Like you said, no, there ain't no testimonial about before and after.
Right.
If I see the magnificent works, the Nation of Islam has produced more great men that have done great things than any other teaching, any other school of thought, any other institution, hands down.
That's right.
So it always goes back to that tree,
Mm-hmm.
right? These great fruits that constantly give the nourishment that's needed to the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's people that know the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan through you.
Yes, sir.
Right? But you lead them, it's like a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hey, Brother Nuri, where does this funnel lead me to?
Yeah.
Then you get to it, and you might be all the way in 1984 looking at discipline urges about sexual urges because Brother Nuri done mentioned something. Now he done led you to that.
That's right.
Right? And so Minister Farrakhan may have gave that speech in the 80s, but it's working in the 2020s.
That's right.
Right? And so that's that power, because it's the tree, and then it's all these branches.
Mm-hmm.
And these branches are all across the planet. There's brothers that we don't know.
That's right.
That are branches somewhere in a whole nother country speaking and giving light to the dead.
That's right.
So I think that that's a beautiful thing, because that's part of that transformation that happens across the planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And a lot of our ego, I think, it's just rooted, right, in the wrong desires. Right? It's not rooted in how we gonna change and transform the world. How we gonna knock the devil down?
Right,
you know what I'm saying? How we gonna rebuild? Like, and then that's the stuff you quote unquote brag about. We quote unquote brag about things that don't have any value. We don't brag about things that have value.
Right.
How many brothers walk, man, I just say 10,000 people. Ain't nobody bragging like that.
Yeah.
That's not the
bro,
braggadocious atmosphere that we have. And that's why ego is so seen in a negative connotation and light, because it drives you. Right? Instead of you driving it and saying that, listen, this spirit is keeping me in the competition against the devil to win. Right? Not against my brother, and definitely not for me to position myself and exalt myself just for the point of.
Right.
So that's where I would love our people to take on that spirit when we walk outside. Well, don't you want to own that building? Mm-hmm. Don't you want the world to look like it comes from you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I always thought about that since I was a child, that I can walk outside and go walk for miles and know that no black man owns none of these skyscrapers, none of these buildings.
They don't feel right.
I don't feel right. It feel like I'm living in somebody else's world. So if I'm going to have ego, it's going to be in the sense that I want to build my own world. I'm not about to live in the reality of somebody else's intellectual property and manifestation and then call myself a god and not be able to produce the same, similar, or better results.
It's self-worth. See, it's self-worth that is a self-image that you have of yourself that comes from scriptural basis.
Yes, sir.
Not from the opinions of man. So that is way past ego.
Yes, sir.
That's proper analyzation of yourself.
Yes, sir.
You can have that kind of God pride and still be humble. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. So what gets people messed up is that they think in order for me to be humble, I have to be weak, docile, and not a warrior, not a go-getter, not a hunter. No, to be humble means you think of yourself less, not think less of yourself. So I'm a hunter, I'm a go-getter, I'm a warrior, but I'm going to go get and hunt so that I can make sure the whole pride can eat. And that's the difference. So you know that's that spirit that you're saying is 100% exact. And that's part of, like I said, take the teachings personal. Every time you look at a black man, you're looking at God.
Yes, sir.
Well, hell, don't just go say that to the brother that we seen earlier down the street. There's a brother laying down the street, on the street right now, down there, laying down there, sleep. And I said, God is laying down outside. What is God? What are you doing? God. And if you take it personal, though, then you know that God is force and power, that you have the ability to take your will and impose it on matter, energy, space, and time and conquer any of them in his name, not just for yourself, but for service of others.
Yes, sir.
And that's why you keep your pride intact and you still are humble at the same time.
Yes, sir. So I got 2 more points I want to get.
Yes, sir.
And I thank you for your time so far. Let's go back to the beginning of all of this. In the beginning.
Genesis.
In the beginning, that's the question. What was in the beginning? How did the entirety of the universe begin? What is the belief on how it all began to be?
Wow. That, I would say there's a lecture I listened to at a minister when I first came in. I just listened to it 3 days ago, but I think I've listened to it at least 500 times. It's called Who is God?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
At least 500 times.
Yeah.
I'm saying back out, I had a cassette tape.
Yeah.
Inside my vehicle.
Yeah.
And
my mom sends me that one all the time.
It didn't snap. It didn't break. It just stopped playing. I didn't know it could do that. I said, "What the hell? It's not even broke. It won't even play no more." But in that lecture, he breaks down in the beginning. And a brief synopsis, he talks about what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad revealed, that in the beginning, that in the universe, there was nothing that existed but a material darkness. And in that was the most mysterious force known to man at this time, because they don't know when it began, electricity. And the third force that was present was the thought of God. And that the thought of God knew how to take the electricity and strike the matter, material substantive darkness. The Quran calls that material darkness triple darkness, or black mud, or sounding clay, or the single essence. He struck that and resurrected one atom of life. And that atom of life, electrically charged, began to spin, and by centripetal force,
yes, sir,
summoned other ones to itself. And that atom began to form into a cell. And then cells came together to form molecules. Or molecules came together to form cells. Cells came together to form an organ called a brain for that mind to live in of God. And then from that organ of brain, all the other organs came into existence, and the organism called man came into existence. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said at the time of his self-creation of God, he built his home planet simultaneous to his own self-creation. So he was forming the earth out of the same thing he was making himself. And whenever he said it took him eons and eons of time to perform it. Now you go to an atom, and they say the power of an atom is an electron, electricity. You look at the way a child is born. The minister said that the way we come into the world is a sign of how the universe came into existence.
Yes, sir.
Sperm finds the egg, cracks, explosion takes place. It begins to revolve, forms a head. The head brings a body. Baby is born. Same as it was. The electricity was like sperm. Found the atom like an egg. So they always say that the first man was Adam. We didn't come from Adam, came from Atom.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought of God, just like the sperm had a head, but doesn't have its own brain, but it has some intelligence because 1 out of 1 billion or 300 million found the one to bring us into existence. That's a sign that God's mind was guiding that sperm, like God's mind guided the electricity. In the womb of darkness, like the womb of the mother, we were born out of that darkness. And now you look at the home planet simultaneous being created with him. Whenever somebody dies, we say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. From the earth we came.
Yes, sir.
To the earth we return. Why? Because the molecular structure of the bone of man matches the rock of the planet. The molecular structure of the flesh of man matches the vegetation of the earth. And if you took a leaf down off a tree and put it next to your hand, the hand and the leaf look just the same. Lines going through your hand, lines going through the leaf. The leaf is at the end of the branch that came from a trunk that came from a seed. Turn your body upside down. Your head is like a seed. Trunk is a torso. Arms and legs are the branches that produce the fruits of your labor. The water of the earth matches the blood and the water of man. You got 2 types of water on the earth, fresh water, salt water. You got 2 types of water inside the body, fresh water and salt water. Fresh water, blood, saliva. Salt water, sweat, tears. Oceans, seas, lakes, and rivers. It's inside of us. So, I know that's a lot to put out in the atmosphere, but
they go take it.
Point is that
they can slow it down, but they got to pick up what you're putting down.
And I'm really, I can't unpack it, but I'm putting a commercial on for you to go check out that lecture and that unpack it. Because the most important question that you could ever get the answer to is, who is God? Because once you learn who God is, you're going to find out that you and him are the same.
Yeah.
And what he is and became is an example of what we are and can become.
That atom, that's why they say physics is just an atom studying itself, right? Because the proof that we're multidimensional, of course, is just the fact that, we are atoms and then we are flesh and man, right? And so there's always these different environments of self where there are things happening. And if we go back, I might pull up the quote because I like this quote. I said it last time, but it was from the Theology of Time when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was explaining the zero. He was explaining that essentially, there was that zero, that cipher. And he had a brother go out there and he say, I want you to go draw a line, right? And he was saying, I want you to put a 1 on the other end, or I think he said a 0 at the other end on the line. So you have nothing to nothing. But then he was explaining, if you take that 0 and you put on the other end of that 1, now you have that 1 that has been multiplied by 10 times. And he said that this is how we are, right? Without God.
Right.
With God, he multiplies us.
Right.
Right. Without him, we are nothing.
Right.
And I think about in the beginning, you say the first law was motion. So that means before that, it had to be stillness. Right. And we live in a world where we barely get stillness. We celebrate motion. Gotta have some motion. You ain't got no motion. Ain't looking at you funny. You feel me? But stillness is important as well, as we talked about rest. Because when you are in that stillness, it is important of what you're cultivating by the time you put yourself in motion. Because the problem is that when people do have thoughts and they're in motion, it's not the right thought to put into motion.
Right.
And I want to kind of sum up this conversation that we having as far as you talk about this centripetal force inside the man. And if you could envision you have all of this electricity in your brain that is spinning at all of this time.
Right.
All of this force that is happening. And if you could see it, then you can understand it more. But because man is limited by the senses, right, his 5 senses as we talk about, he doesn't know his other senses that he has.
Mm-hmm.
So he thinks of the material world too much and not the immaterial world enough. Mm-hmm. So this is why he doesn't have that power to command himself. Because if you can see the electricity always spiraling, and if you can see the force that emanates from you when you're attracting things or repelling things, then you will shut off certain thoughts, right? If it had a color to it, because you'd be like, no, I'm not thinking that. I can literally see the problems coming to me, or you can see the solution. So you'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna focus more on that.
Wow.
And this is why we get into the science. This is why having a mathematical mind, to me, is the deep understanding and observations of the unseen.
Yes, sir.
Right? We have to breathe, but we can't see it, but we know it because we experience it.
Yeah.
Right? And knowledge makes the unseen experienced, right? To where it's real to me and it becomes something I know, not even just something I believe. I know there's oxygen because I'm breathing. Right? It's a system of knowledge that I can correlate from causation to action.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked about the beginning because if we go back, there's always that lesson. You know what I'm saying? In your book, you wrote about the different laws of the universe. And I think that we get so caught up in the laws of attraction, we don't think about none of the laws.
Yeah, law of attraction mean nothing if you don't follow the law of action after you do it.
Yes, sir.
You got to, so, there's the impediment. As you said, that God's not lazy, but the gods sometimes are lazy. So if they call it the law of attraction, if whatever you want to call it, you can bring things to yourself by the way you think and act. But after the law of attraction, you're going to have to engage in the law of action because faith without works is dead.
Yes, sir.
Mere belief accounts for nothing, Prophet Muhammad said, peace be upon him, unless it's carried into practice. Even in psychology, they say affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusionment. But when you affirm and you follow it up with discipline, you can perform and work your own miracles. Maya Angelou said this. She said, nothing will work unless you do.
Yes, sir.
I said, I like that.
Yes,
I like that. That it matches the Quran.
Yeah.
In Surah 13:11 said, God changes not the condition of a people until that people change their own condition. And the Nuri translation gives a description of how you do it. It says, God changes not the condition of a people until that people change their thoughts and ways. So that's it. Changing the thinking and actions is the way that we bring about that change that we're looking for. So that, we got to get out of spookism.
Yes, sir.
And get into a mathematical theology and put that mathematical theology, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, to use in proper terms that we can secure for ourselves some benefit while we are alive.
Yes, sir. Now I want to ask you this last thing, very important. And because I know it's on the mind of many, about the Nation of Islam. And the question comes that during the time that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan ascends, what then happens to the Nation of Islam as a chain of command, as many ask, is there one person, right? Yeah. What is the future of the Nation of Islam, right, after, I would say, the physical ascension of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan?
Well, it is the, in our student enrollment, this is one of the second to last questions that we're asked. And the question is, what is the birth record of the said Nation of Islam? And the answer is, the said Nation of Islam has no birth record. It has no beginning.
Nor ending.
And it has no ending. So the beauty of the minister is that he has deposited himself into millions of people around the planet. And because he was the firsthand recipient of what happened prior in 1975 when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed, he's been ever since then constantly teaching and training and structuring us where we are going to go through the same test. The only difference is we're going to have an open book test. He's already given us all the things to study and all the answers, so we have no excuse to fail. So we have a structure. We have a sure council to help the executive council, to help management of the nation. But everybody has different roles to play and different assignments. I give an example to how that works. When Jesus was leaving, he had this thing they called the Last Supper. At the Last Supper, he had one loaf of bread. He broke a piece of it and gave each one of the disciples a piece of the bread. And he was telling them that this wine represents my blood, or this juice represents my blood. This bread represents my flesh. In other words, as long as you all live the kind of life I lived with the blood, live like I lived, you all never, not one of you will ever be me. But I am the loaf. But I gave all of y'all a little piece. So even though not one of you could ever be me, if all of you all come together, you might be able to make a good loaf to be able to provide what is necessary. So everybody has a little piece of bread, and we have the life that we know we're supposed to live. We just have to do our part for the time he's gone until he returns, and then we'll move from that point on. But I wouldn't. It's going to be a trial. It's going to be a test. There'll be challenges. We know the enemy is going to try to make mischief with his absence. But a real student doesn't prove how good of a student that he or she is while the teacher is present. A real student proves how good of a student they are when the teacher is absent. So let's see. I pray to Allah that I could stand up and show up as a real student.
Yes, sir.
And not be one that can behave and do right while the teacher's present, but behave better and do even more in his absence. So when he come back to the class, we learned, we got it. Matter of fact, we might have some new classes on there,
yes,
and
sir,
a whole lot more students in there for him to teach.
Yes, sir.
That's what I would say.
I know it's the last question, but.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, this one I just want to know about your spirit. You are a man in position. You are a man that is heavily relied on. You are the one that is the giver of light to many, right? Okay. So I wonder, number one, how is your spirit? And then number two, how do you take care of your spirit when you feel like you've given so much and people are still asking for more and you haven't taken that time, right, for self to replenish that cup?
Well, I try to be conscious of it, but I really, whenever you're in a labor of love, it's not really work to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you love doing. It's what gives you mental satisfaction. It waters your soul. So I get so much joy out of helping the minister, helping my nation, helping my people, that I don't know of anything that I could ever do by myself and for myself that would ever give me 5% of the feeling I get from being able to teach and help the people. I try to be smart enough to make sure that I don't fall victim to what the great lumberjack fell victim to, the story of the man. He's out there chopping down trees and he was doing good for a long time, and he's wanting to know why is he swinging the axe, and why come I'm hitting it in the same spot. It's the same type of tree. This is the same axe. Why come the trees ain't falling? It's taking a long time for me to chop the tree down. Dawned on him, no. He forgot to take time to sharpen his axe.
I like that.
So I think about that.
That's some good.
So I'm like, I got, so I try not to see downtime as negligence. I see it as a time to sharpen the axe.
Yes, sir.
So that when I go back to the task, that I can be more effective at the assignment.
That's good right there. That's good. I always ask leaders that, because as they say, nobody ever checks on the strong ones.
Yeah. Well, you become, at a certain point, sometimes you'll become an institution, not an individual. They don't even think that you go through the traditional struggles of life because they see you as a rostrum base or a camera turned on individual. They don't know that you got to deal with the same struggles of life that everybody else has to deal with.
On top of your position.
Yeah. So it's You know, it's an honor though.
Yes, sir.
It's an honor to serve. And if you didn't go through it, you couldn't be the strong person that you are. So you thank Allah for the regiment, you know, to that whatever it is, the trials, the tribulations, circumstances that's off the stage, behind the scene, when the camera's not on, because it's helping to make you stronger. But it's, you know, I truly love being with you. I love this opportunity. I love us being on a platform to build together. And I'm always thinking about what would I have felt like if I had been 13 or 15 or whatever and learned what is being said today. So I'm always excited to know, like when I wrote that book.
Yes, sir.
There are word is bond. The last editing, my wife thought something, I was in there, I was crying so hard. I'm talking about I broke all the way down. My head on the desk. I was crying. She's like, I was like, I'm okay. I said, this is going to do so much for so many people.
Yeah.
That it just broke me down like that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, you know, I'm thinking
that.
about them, man. And I thank you, Brother Keys, for having the discipline, the fight, the drive, the focus, the fortitude, to stay on the battlefield and to always do something to raise the consciousness of our people. And it's not an easy task what you're doing, brother.
Yes, sir.
And you have a different kind of strength, and Allah is going to continue to bless you.
All praise
the
due
minister
to Allah.
sent his love and greetings to you.
All praise due to Allah.
As well.
Yes, sir.
So let's stay together.
Yes, sir.
Stay on this battlefield. We are fighting for Islam, and we will surely win.
Yes, sir. Well, I thank you. I definitely suggest people get the Mathematics of the Mind. I read a lot.
Yes, sir.
Whether I'm reading a book or listening to a book or searching for information, and it's rare that I come upon something that hits me instantly.
Wow.
Right? I asked you yesterday, I said, brother, can you send me the PDF? I wanted to go through it. You know, I just wanted to skim real quick. And man, I start going through the whole book. I'm sitting there, I'm writing my notes. I'm on the computer.
Wow.
I'm getting references. Like, it engaged me very fast. And without even going through every single detail, I was able to go through the chapters, and I got what I believe was the idea and the concept that you were given. What I like to put in my language, keys. It's these concepts you get that you got to share with another person, because you know if they get it, they can unlock that rusty lock part of their mind.
Yes, sir.
You feel me? And this is one of those books that I represent and that I recommend as a top 10. You know what I mean?
Thank you, sir.
Like, honestly, I don't recommend a lot of people books. I'm actually going to do a book club, but this going to be one of the books we go over. So all the students going to have to get the Mathematics of the Mind.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank you as a brother, as a leader, as somebody that I've been able to watch my whole life. My mother loves you. You know what I'm saying? My father loves you. You're a soldier. You represent, I think, the spirit of a man in today's time.
Oh, praise
right? The representation of your marriage. And I asked about the difficulties because I know the advertising of marriage only shows difficulties. But I think that there's the beauty in it. When you see a beautiful couple and they smiling and they vibrant and they radiant, man, I just think about y'all done been through all of that to come back to this state.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? To smile, because you know that it's worth it.
Right.
You feel me? And that to me is the way I look at successful people. I don't just look at the rewards.
Right.
No, because I can't get the rewards if I don't go through the struggle.
Yes, sir.
You feel me? So that's the beauty of it. So brother, thank you.
Thank you.
Continue to be this light, brother.
Love you much, brother.
Love you too, brother.
Bless you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yo, this has been another high-level conversations. Make sure you go pick up your copy of Mathematics at the Mind. Can you tell the people where they can get it from?
NuriMuhammad.com.
Oh, okay, easy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Peace, family. Till next time on High-Level Conversations.
I'm 19 Keys, and this is High-Level Conversations. Tap in with the gods.
Our simple mathematics. Remember, serving black people is serving God. Whatever you do for black people, you're doing it for God. And so to not serve them is to not serve God. So we have to do that. And if as you said, aspire to inspire before you expire. If we go back to the original axioms that we used to govern our mind before we were kidnapped and Caucasianized and Westernized by an enemy, we have certain rules of, it takes a village to what? Raise a child. Look at this. Each one reach one and each one teach one. Most people just say each one teach one, but it's really each one reach one, then each one teach one, because people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So once you have in your mind that serving my people is serving God, and to not serve them is not serving God, and each one has got to reach one and teach one, I got to show some love, and I got to impart some knowledge on my brothers and my sisters. That's my assignment. That's my obligation that I have. And then remember this, Prophet Muhammad said, the only knowledge that man keeps is the knowledge that man shares. So if you don't teach it, you don't get to keep it. So we have to always find a way and remember the process that got us where we were. If it wasn't for somebody introducing us to, where would our life have landed? So we got to catch our brothers and sisters and say, I got to do for them same thing that was done for me. I got to follow that original code of my ancestors. Each one reach one, each one teach one. And I got to make sure that if I don't tell somebody what I know, I'm going to lose it. Because the only knowledge man keeps is knowledge man shares. I got to do my part.
I think this conversation was actually an easy one to prepare for. Even if I didn't pick up that book, I know I can just have a natural flow conversation with my brother. That's easy. There's too many questions that I have for him. But when you write books, it makes it so much easier because I can pull a reference, right? Whether I believe you had one book called The Seven Jewels of God.
Yes, sir.
Whether it's about the ones on marriage, right? Manhood. He talks about the 7 traits of man. I didn't even get to go into all of the subjects that I wanted to go, but I don't want to kidnap my brother for 5 hours going into these different topics. But when I was reading the Mathematics of the Mind, my father, when I was younger, in FOI class, we used to always talk about, tapping in and tuning in and how you can transmit thoughts outward, right? And this was something that's always intrigued me my whole life. And so when I seen him breaking it down in almost a formulaic way, and it resonated with me as well, because when he said cleanliness is God, then it puts it in, I like formulas, I like systems, I like ways to where it's a logical process. So I understand that concept where someone is trying to clean up their life. Someone says that, what is the point of righteousness, right? If you will. And I believe what this book gives you is a reward to righteousness, to where say, when you have a clean mind, you have a clean environment, when you can harmonize in your environment, right? Now you find things to become more in line. And he doesn't just talk from a theological standpoint, it's a scientific. Right? He has research papers and citing things that are in there that ties everything together, and it makes it feel effortlessly, to be honest. So when I was reading it, it had me thinking it's aspirational in the sense that when I write my next books, I want it to be received in the same way that I received this book. It was instantly understood. You got to the core of the value. There was no fluff, and it unlocked something in you instantly that you want to share with others. Huh. 1,000 milligrams, 1 ounce, 0.5 grams. I think it's too much here. I'm gonna be honest. I think we need to label this one SuperMIND Extreme. I think we need to have one where we kind of cut it. This is the disclaimer I got to do for this product. If you take this product, it's a supercharged product. It's not one of the ones to where, you know, you just take and you chill mode. It's one of the ones you take and you super focused. Mental acuity is growing. You can feel like you remembering things from your childhood that you never knew before. Don't take this one if you don't want the supercharge. And right now we only have the SuperMIND. We don't have the regular mind. So this is the one that got the lion's mane, the CBD, the black seed oil, MCT oil. This is the one that'll have you goddamn running all day long and just knocking out task after task after task after task. You feel me? But don't take this if you don't want to have a supercharged day. This is only from the supercharged days because I think we put too much in this one. So that's a disclaimer on this before you all go and get some of that SuperMIND.
If you're going to jump into crown society, you're saying that I represent power, I represent knowledge of self.
Stepping in the name of drip, get ready with me. Stepping in the name of drip, get ready.
I wear the crown to just symbolize, like, I know who I am, I know why I'm here, I know my purpose.
It's abundance, it's royalty, it's prosperity, it's energy.
Put in.
Yeah.
I gotta walk with my head held high because you gotta see this and you gotta see this.
I believe that if anybody wants to be able to protect their mind and be able to think freely, you gotta get crown society today, man.
Neo after the blue pill, the color palette's all black. James Bond mixed with Malcolm X in my Che Guevara era.